It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear! Do not fear! Do not fear! Another two-part, 6-hour Trump report today because I got stuff I got to do. So we're going to keep it down to a few hours probably. So this is a time of year that we're just we're enjoying family and stuff, and all of a sudden this is the year. This is the year that they go. You don't say anything. You're standing in the backyard. Well, in Arizona, in the backyard. I don't know where you are. You're probably huddled around the fire. But, you're back there. You're having the turkey and the buffet line on the fold-out tables, and you're talking, you're out in the counter, and you just kind of, you don't bring anything up, and you go stand over, lean up against a saguaro cactus, if you're Arizona. And you go over there, and you're just like, what's up? And all of a sudden, one of the cousins, nephews, in-laws, whatever comes up, did you hear about, what did you think about, oh, you're bringing it, all of a sudden, now, we told you what was up last year and what was going to get prepared for. Well, get ready because something wicked this way's here, okay? Here we go. Today, we put it up today. They're all freaking out. It's near 60. I wake up in the morning, silver's over $63. What's it out now? $63.80. It'll be 64. Of course, it'll probably come down a little bit, whatever, but it's ratcheting up. And this is a fundamental thing. This is not, like the Hunt Brothers speculation or corner the market with a bunch of leverage and getting one of them that jumps up to 50. We blew by that. Then you go, we have, so that was kind of regulation. They went after them and it plummeted down to, 4 or something like that. Then you get the squeeze that they tried with GameStop and the Robinhood guys, they were trying to do the same thing. All right, we shorted, they were trying to short that, and we did the squeeze on that and kind of outed and did, and then we're going to go do silver. So this was a few years ago, and they do silver, and it kind of ratchets up and runs up, and then that was like a flash in the pan, and then it goes down. Well, now it's fundamentals. I need the physical bars to melt down to do my electronic, solar, electric car, battery, kind of whatever. I need some industrialized. I need. I'm not putting it in a warehouse. I'm not ETFing it. I freaking need it. Well, it's not available. They go into the vaults and everything. They go, there's a bunch of silver right there. Well, that's backing up an ETF that we have to, they got it. They own it now. Not that I trust any of this anyway, but this is what's happening. It is a physical shortage demand, and silver is not generally silver mines. It's, I think like 70, 80% of it comes from other mining, copper, rare earths, whatever. It's just a side effect of that processing. And like here in Arizona, and Southeast Arizona, the Morenci mines and all that kind of stuff, most of the silver in Arizona comes from them mining copper and some gold too and everything. So they're, we're not going to throw, this part away. I mean, that's money. We'll keep that too. So silver is a big thing. Now, the state capital at one time, I think, was Wickenburg, which is northwest of Phoenix, probably like 30, 40 miles from Sun City, Northwest Valley, starting to go out of the valley up there. And that was from silver. Wickenburg was a big silver thing. So this is expected. It's been manipulated all to hell, and now that manipulation is, I don't think, possible. I don't know what they're going to do. They are now using airliners to transport silver around the world because they got to cover, demand of physical, and I got, and says here on this piece of paper. And sooner or later, none of that's going to matter. It's not going to be based on future contracts. It's not going to be based, it's going to be the physical market because they can't get it, from these people. Now, buy a futures and we can deliver. Oh, you guys all want delivery? It was here a minute ago. It was next to my heart. I do, so what they're going to do, when I do that, people don't even know what that means. It's right here next to my heart. And he's patting his shirt pockets and so on. That was from an old TV series called Hee Haw. You remember that? Hee Haw! And it was just, anyway, so that's where I got that from. But what happened is that now they're shipping physical around. They had a big, giant delivery came from the U.S. to go into the London market just so that they could stay in business. This is not, it's just begun. This is what the beginning looks like. So we were able to, just in the batch of silver that we got, I'll just tell you straight up. We just, at $20,000 that we weren't needing, right away. Donna's mother died, left us some money, paid off, a bunch of bills and everything. Got, we're just get all even. And we had, need some for buffer and building the place. Thanks, Mom. And then I got like 20,000 extra. What are we going to do with that? Well, I'm not leaving it in cash. So we got to go. So we go to local silver guys. We go in there. They hooked us up. Boom, got us a deal. I think we paid like $60 over spot for 10-ounce bars. And I'm going, cool. Of course, it's in my son's safe, because, it was heavy. We forgot it. But anyway, so we get that immediately. It goes to, 63 within a couple weeks. I'm feeling pretty good, along with all our other. I share this stuff with you guys because I just don't say it. I believe it. I know it. And my itty-bitty little teeny-weeny, dropping, a micro dot drop of my participation is just that I don't want to lose the value of the money. That would suck. Your mother-in-law dies, has a little bit left over, disperses it amongst her 3 kids, and then immediately it drops 30, 40% in a few months of what it was. That's just stupid. So, pay off everything, silver. And then it shoots up. And it's not even close to being done. Then you have other opportunities like, Phranq wants to talk about SpaceX going public. I don't know what I think about that, but, that would be something like you want to support that which you want to see more of, and I want to see more innovation of whatever, but I don't trust the markets. Hey,
Ernie, before we get off onto that, so welcome audience here, but I think we should officially change the theme song to the show. I'm kind of getting tired of the same theme. So here we go, audience. I think
everyone wishes for
pretty much now. I think Burl Ives should be our new mascot here. So we're watching Rudolph the other day with my 8-year-old, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's Phranq and Ernie's new song and favorite song." Well, anyway, I just want to comment before we get off to other topics. There was some videos out there. I don't believe them to this degree. I even was checking with Ernie about it and see what the audience is hearing. But that some silver shops, and this could be also, it's happening in England and Europe, not just in America, but some of them are not selling the silver like they actually have silver rounds in their stores for retail. They're not selling it because the price is moving so quickly that they're concerned if they sell it for the price today and it goes up $10, by next week when they make another order, then they're going to be losing money on that. So they're basically holding on to their own silver, waiting for the price to go up to the point where it settles a little bit before they start selling it. So, I'm curious if any of you guys are hearing about that on your own. Ernie hasn't. My silver guys are always, full of plenty, and they're pretty on top of it. But, it is an interesting concept if you start having hyperinflation that begins.
Maybe larger firms, or they're manipulating, or they're playing front-running Goldman Sachs kind of stuff. But normally, I talked to Tim Fry from Roberts & Roberts, or advertisement at top left, precious metals guy on top left of Freedom's Phoenix. And he says what happens, really, if you're responsible, not an idiot, what you do is when they buy it, from you, you reorder it right away. You just take that, order it, so you're not ever out. It goes up, it goes down. You replenish your supply. But I can imagine you buy it at the high price and then you sell it at the lower price. You're really making your money on the premium, the margin, because you're not out of it, because you're buying and selling it. You get percentage when you sell it. You get percentage when you buy it. Now, if you're trying to time the market and you stock up low and then let it go up and then sell it, yeah, you can make bank. But to stay away from this up and down kind of thing, they're just brokers. They're like, Goldman sucks when you're buying and selling, unless they're front running, flash trading, and screwing you, which they do. But, you're making money on the trade, not on the whatever it is you're trading. So if you go into the market, you buy and sell right away and so on, you're just getting the commission, the difference. So you're not out. Now, when people try to do that, they're trying to, make money on the value of it and sell you and that's when they start going, oh, you need to get this premium on this antique gold coin it costs twice as much. Never mind. That's just stupid. But, well, I mean, some people make money on it, but that's what's really going on. And I think the regular retail gold and silver antique shop, pawn shop, silver jewelry, whoever's where you get your gold and silver from, I don't think they make out. They're like brokers. They make money on the volatility. They make money on the volume. They make money on the trade. And if you're responsible and you see it like that and you do that, you're good. Now, when it shoots up like this, what's normally happening? People are selling. So I've been telling you, nobody's selling it. They're probably pissed off it went up, freaking another 30%, after they sold it. But it's so yeah, I don't see, there still is trade, and I guess if they get a surplus, they can sell it off on the market to somewhere else. If you're a gold silver dealer and you're responsible and conservative and you're just making money, you'll buy and sell and trade the other kind of whatever. But at some point, you get built up. And that's what's happening with the silver. People are selling it. But then it goes up. And you got it. You're sitting there up. Are people buying it? I don't know.
Well, at the same time.
It's called a free market. You let it do its thing.
Well, look, people are selling it. But it's interesting what's being bought, what's not. Apparently a lot of the, not junk silver, but like silverware, for instance, silver tea kettles, this kind of stuff. These kind of silver ingots and such, they're not being bought apparently because the refiners, they don't have enough time to melt it all down. So they're actually, so you see how quickly this stuff is changing, where maybe they still have the silver, they're buying and selling it, the rounds, like you just pointed out, for retail, but apparently they're not buying a lot of the silverware and such. Until the refineries can catch up. The other thing I've noticed in the last few weeks, now this audience has known this for a while, we get it, but it's fascinating to see two types of new quote unquote monies, well, not monies, but ways of transferring gold parallel. And that is the tether gold, the tokenized gold, essentially. There's two of them that hit around the same time.
Blah, blah, blah.
Well, you say blah, 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 but tether gold, I think, is definitely something to watch. And it turns out tether gold, they have bought more gold, I think, more gold than most sovereigns. Like they've been kind of quietly buying the gold in China. So they are truly backing up their position as the official tokenized gold. And of course, if the Genius Act, or the Idiot Act, in my opinion, but if you have the Genius Act allowing all tokenized to be with T-bills, at least years one backed in gold. And if we're going to switch to that, tether gold's probably a good place to look, at least to look. I'm not giving advice to get it. I don't have any yet. Apparently, it was illegal for Americans to even own it up until, I believe, the law was supposed to be changed in November. I haven't double-checked that. And at the same time is Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff finally, just to give him a little plug, you guys know he was over in the Middle East. I forget, was it Dubai or someplace else for the crypto conference, and he had the famous debate with CZ about Bitcoin, because Michael Saylor cowardly again, refused to debate Peter Schiff. He keeps hiding and running away from Peter. But Peter went there. He's like, all right, even though he's like the most popular, a bear on crypto, if you call him.
He's like on all the crypto conferences. They bring him in just to bring him in.
Well, people love that. They have like a love-hate relationship with Peter because they look at him as like your favorite uncle that like taught took you fishing and taught you about the facts of life. Your favorite uncle, but the uncle's just not quite getting this thing called the computer yet, or the V8 or the VCR. He doesn't understand the VCR. You're like, hey, uncle, you're my coolest guy. I know you'll love it if you get it. And they want Peter on board because I think it's like this. It gets in their crawl and they get angry. There's so many people.
They're looking for a one-sentence quote from him that they can market the crap out of. They want
confirmation because most of these people learned a lot about the free market, about the dollar going down and the Fed, in their generation. A lot of people learned it from Peter. For us, we learned it from, like for me, Irv Homer. We learned it from Creature of Jekyll Island. There's different ways. But so many young people have learned about this through Peter. And when Peter's not on board, it makes them nervous. And especially now, with crypto going down and the metals going up, exactly as Peter said, and they're starting to get quite nervous. But anyway, Peter's like, well, I'm going to go anyway. And yeah, that's fine. I'll probably get a free paid trip to go there. He had a bunch of fancy dinners. Yeah, he goes. But he also went to advertise his new product, which is, I forget the name of it, but it's tokenized Schiff Gold, but there's a tokenized form of it. So he already knows, I think, the future too. It's the combo, the marriage. It's like peanut butter and chocolate for Reese's Peanut Butter Cup is what you're going to get is you're going to have gold and blockchain technology for tokenized gold. So he's jumping ahead. He's creating his own. So
yeah, no.
Hey, so
wait, finish up. I got a comment.
Peter just said, I think it was a week or two ago that he opened up for business. So, and I'm not advertising. Hey, Peter, you should be giving me 10% for this cheap plug here, Peter. But anyway, apparently he can't tokenize it yet, but you can buy gold positions in his company in this product. So you're buying actual gold that they hold on to, and then the tokenized part, I guess, comes online, I don't know, sometime in the future, and it'll be a competition with Tether Gold. So I'm sure other companies will start coming out at some point, but I don't have my money into it yet, but I'm certainly watching it to see how this plays out. I think that will be the future.
All right.
Go.
Just to give you a 30,000-foot thing on here. Michael Saylor does the same thing. He has a company, a software, he has got a company. The value of that company is how many gazillion Bitcoins that they got. Well, they bought, I don't know, something stupid like 650,000 Bitcoins. So it's $1 gazillion. So they have it, and he's always pumping the crap out of it. I was in Vegas, and I'm like, to hear the stuff that he was saying was just, man, he was a Carney Barker. And it's like, mortgage your house, buy Bitcoin, get more Bitcoin. Your inheritance should go Bitcoin to your kids and your grandparents got Bitcoin. Well, the value of the stock is with Bitcoin. But what happens is, they have preferred stock and the dividends that they do, and it's it's like, I don't know, $1 million a year they're paying in dividends to people, and then they get the money to buy it. They're supposed to be able to buy more Bitcoin, but what happens when it goes down? Well, then, they can shut off dividends, but the preferred ones you can't, so that's a bleed on it. You have to sell your Bitcoin, your underlying commodity, your value, your asset, to make these payments. Well, they start selling that. Well, then the price goes down more. So then you got to sell more and more, and it goes into a debt spiral. Well, this is one thing that they're worried about and warning of, and it's like inevitable the way they're doing this. If you do that with tokenized gold, it's going to be the same thing. How are you going to pay off this when the price starts going down? Well, Peter, I would imagine, will be, certainly in terms of dollars, it's not going to go down. It's going to go up. Well, that's what Saylor's been pumping, Bitcoin. The fundamentals of Bitcoin is, how much gold and silver you're willing to give up for its features. Well, it doesn't have a feature. A feature of it is digital gold. It's gold. Well, I can just get gold. No, it's kind of, it's going to go up in the scarcity of and kind of, and digital. The only value crypto has is as a means of exchange, as a currency. Nope, it's a store of value. How? Well, it's got special electrons. And I'm going, no, that is not what gives it its value. And they're going to find that out very quick. It's going to be like what we're working on. We need a means of exchange. We need a currency. We need fast, cheap, secure trading. This is what my video doing nonconformist series that I load up Monday, for they're going to play this internationally by the end of the month. And this is exactly the point that I'm making and willing to do a video on to a bunch of anarchists going, let me tell you what I think, okay? What we're preparing for. This is exactly what the mesh network's for, the Internet communication platform, us being able to buy, sell, trade, barter, whatever I got, I need, I want, I buy, I sell, whatever farmer market of, I'm opening a lemonade stand and you can kiss my ass. So this is what we're talking about. What Peter is doing, he comes in and he goes, all right, we're going to tokenize it. Now, Xano, that is one of the big things Aaron Day and Roger Ver and all these guys that are, we're working on this. They're like, the revolution will be tokenized. Now, I changed that on my side. I go, the revolution will be decentralized. Now, if you want to tokenize every tree and RFID your chickens or whatever, knock yourself out. But this is what their mindset is. They're going, this is where the future is going to be. It's going to be the underlying value of any and everything, of any currency, Ethereum, or they're going to create their own tokenization on their blockchain of whatever the hell, which is what Peter is doing. That's how we're going to be able to quickly trade it. You eliminate a whole bunch of commissions. You don't have
right.
Brokers kind of, screwing you or front running you at Goldman Sachs and, this kind of stuff. But where is the freaking gold and silver? This was, they tried about a decade ago. They were trying to do bye baby. This is what they were trying to do at Acapulco one time. I remember these guys, it was called Crypto AG, whatever it was, for silver. They were going, we're backing it with silver. My first question, where's it at? Our history was, at the beginning of the 2000s, it was a Wired magazine, big thing, oh my God, e-gold. And this was it. It was, the gold that you had reserved, your value, you signed over, your car title or whatever. I mean, they were taking anything of value, and it would go into gold that was at, I think, an airport in Dubai, because they chased them out of London. This started in the UK, and they go, screw you, we'll put all our gold and store it in the customs area. So it's kind of this limbo. It's not really in anywhere, but it's being stored there, I think, at the airport in Dubai. So then the IRS and those went after it, and we were promoting it and did it. And I gave, to Michael Kilsky, he's a computer geek and a lawyer and was our webmaster IT guy for a long time. And he was paid in the donations when I was on radio in e-gold. I go, whatever you can make out, it's all yours, man. Knock yourself out. So he did okay. Well, then they seized it. They go, no, that's not yours anymore. Thanks for playing. And it took them over a decade to get it back. And minus whatever the hell. I mean, I should call him and see how that worked out. But he's an attorney. He can file paperwork and did what he's just going to keep on it out of principle. He used to be state chair of the Libertarian Party here in Arizona. So out of principle, he's just like, you sons of bitches. So he went after it. He got his back. Most people just abandoned it. I don't care. So then, after that, Wired magazine, they're pushing all this. It's backed by gold. They cannot allow that to happen. So then Peter Schiff, he's on the show. Peter's been on the show dozens of times over the years. And he was doing called Gold Money. Yeah, I think that's what it was, Gold Money. So yeah. Derek and I invested in it. We go out and go, hey, cool. And you go, and Derek got his MasterCard, credit card that you would go spend it, and it was valued and backed by the gold you had on account. Well, that gold, got sold to the market, whatever. It went into your Visa or your MasterCard account, and you just use it like a credit card, like Gemini's Bitcoin credit card. Well, when we did it, he paid, I think I did cash, maybe some crypto, and he did crypto and got it, and it's back and forth, and it's doing working great. And all of a sudden, here comes the man. Well, we need to know who you is and an ID, fingerprint, DNA sample of, whatever. And he's going, now I want it back. And they go, well, you got to tell us, know your customer. You got to source it, how you got it, how much, what did you sell it for? Because the IR freaking S wants to be a taxing it. So gold money, Peter Schiff, was not really his thing. He was endorsing it, and it was out of I think, the Seychelles or Canary Islands or something like that. And it was, pinky swear, we got the gold right here. But then it's kind of your money. You just can't have it now. And this was how, when you digitize a commodity like that, where the F is it? Who has it? Can I touchy-feel it? Can I roll around in it? Can I lick it? Well, if I can't lick it, it ain't mine, okay? So this was another perfect example. So Derek goes, screw that. I want it back. I did the same thing. We shipped it, and it got lost. It was like gone. It's like a FedEx.
Really?
It tracked it, and it went to some warehouse or some distribution thing in Texas, in Dallas or something. And I go, really? You guys want to play this with a talk show host? All right, let's play. Wait. We found it. It's right here. We just found it. So then I finally got my gold. And it wasn't a whole lot. It's like $8,000-$10,000 worth or something in little, square cubes, whatever. It was packaged. It was nice. So I finally got my gold back. Derek didn't for, weeks, months. It was all, and he refused to give him all the data he wanted. And he went through all kinds of, finally they thought, shut up here. So if you don't physically have it in your possession, which is the definition, oftentimes, of ownership, possession is 9/10 of the law, it ain't yours. So if Peter Schiff is doing a crypto-backed gold, my first question was what I did with gold money. Where is it? Who has it? How do I trust them? I already know you can't trust them. I already know that it's not in your possession. I already know that governments and, people with helicopters and F-16s and M-16s are going to decide, whose gold it is at some point. I guarantee this. Now, making money, making a form of exchange, having the Genius Act and the laws change, and promoting crypto with Trump administration this week. It's like fiat gold. It's because the government says you're allowed. So that doesn't mean it's not going to function. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work for a while. That doesn't mean that it's not, shouldn't be tried. But to think that you have the same traits of I freaking have it, it's not even the same thing. Now, it opens up a lot of trading and volume and volatility, all this other crap, but having it, then of course you got to keep it and then not come out and you got to use your guns to defend. But I mean, the point is that it's not the same thing. That's my point.
Completely 1,000% agree. All right. So I don't want the audience to think I'm like, oh, wow, you guys all should both be buying this cyber gold and get tokenized, and that's the future for everything. No, it's just, like I said, I don't own it. I'm looking into it, I'm following it. And for the reason of just to see where this new industry, which I believe it's going to be developing, it's going to keep growing, especially as interest in gold goes up, as the metal prices keep going up, which this audience knows has a ways to go, in at least my opinion. And then you have, of course, the normies figuring this out. You're also going to have the crypto community. I'm not trying to, again, jump on them. It is a precarious time for them, especially the majority of people apparently who bought crypto bought it in the last few years. And so they bought it, they didn't see that, 20, 50x time increase for them. So a lot of them are underwater and being told to hodl. So, now they're watching their investment go down. And of course, the metal's now finally taking off. You kind of wonder whether or not many of those people are going to finally cut their losses and put in the metals. But if they do, what I'm getting to is you have a large community of younger people who have been all into Bitcoin and watching videos and studying how crypto and blockchain work and tokenization. And, they may even bought a few NFTs back in the day, which, to me, that was ridiculous. But they've learned about these concepts. They are a new generation, understanding new technology. So maybe when they finally start to see the some of the issues with Bitcoin or any type of crypto that's not backed by anything, then they see what metals do. It will be that blending of both worlds to maybe make something new. Number two, I want to be really clear. I agree with you 1,000%. If you don't own it, you don't have it. And that even goes sometimes, when people, I'll just, quotes, don't have them, metals even in your own house. Many of us have it in other, banks or if not banks, private institutions. I have often talk about, there's this one right down the corner, the Mountain Vault, which is a private holdings. I kept kind of called a bank, but
it's like a hole in a mountain.
Yeah, it's a hole in the mountain, and these private people own it, and they got plenty of guns, and it's a community and of their own, but it's a private business, and you pay rent to put your stuff, whatever it is, inside.
It's on a main road
place
that goes through the valley here, through this little mountain, and it's just like you turn off like it was a park or something. It's a parking lot by a mountain, and it's just Mountain Vault, and it's just a hole. It's like a Quonset hut into the mountain.
Yeah, and you would literally just drive right past it. Like there's a Thai restaurant on one side and like a parking lot on the other. And literally, if you didn't know, you'd pass it. It's like a 2-foot wide driveway. To even
they keep petitions there. Like when people are collecting, 100,000 petitions.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's how I knew about it, is they collect all these petitions and they have them in their living room to take away income tax. And say, I go, are you stupid? You need to be storing this up. And that's where they wound up putting it.
Yeah, and I heard of some of the companies who had servers. They would put like a backup server in there since the radiation or EMPs couldn't get in there. So it was temperature controlled. But anyway, so you have that. But I want to be clear, though, that whether even if you store it at Mountain Vault, I mean, what happens if Mountain Vault owners suddenly get co-opted by APAC or whatever?
In 1933, when the FDR says you got to turn in, you go to a Treasury agent at the bank watching you open your safe deposit box.
Right, but that was at the bank, and they're right. So the question is it private holding? Well, I don't know. I mean, is a private company,
they'll hold them off for a week.
Would they search and take it? Well, in any case, so you have all of that, and the last thing I would ever acknowledge, for me at least, is to take everything and put it into tokenized gold, where, like you said, you don't know where the gold is or the silver. Same thing with even the Perth Mint. I mean, the Perth Mint had essentially the greatest reputation for holding on to your gold, and I don't want to libel us against them, but wasn't it a few years ago there was an issue with the Perth Mint? I don't know if it was just bloviating or there was kind of a little hiccup about people not getting something. I don't want to misstate it, but I heard it was a few years ago, and it was a little striking that the Perth Mint, of all places, had even anything on their blemish on their record. But the thing is, Ernie, is I agree with all of that, okay? I'll be really clear. It's like, to sit there and pull your money in someplace, and we've seen time and time again, including I myself encountered the problem of Mt. Gox. That was the earliest when I had my first Bitcoin all got stolen, from Mt. Gox. Because at the time, if you didn't understand, if you didn't have a PC or a hard drive in order to get Bitcoin, and that was the only way to do it back in 2012 or whatever it was. And they stole it, just like what happened to Tukowski. So, in his own way. So, yes, there's these risks, and many of people who've been involved in Bitcoin early on or any kind of crypto, it's the Wild West. And like the Wild West, you come out, you can make a lot of money in the Wild West panning for gold, but you also got bandits and Jesse James and whatever else, all kinds of things that can happen to you, and that's the quid pro quo. So, point taken, get it, we all get on this channel.
Guns and gold.
But, and also is that when the economy completely collapses, everyone's going to figure this out. It's you have to own it. And then, of course, that becomes the concern of theft, because suddenly grandmothers' homes are going to be raided by riffraff, and break-ins are going to skyrocket to levels we've never seen, because just grandma's old gold rings sitting there in the closet or on the dresser, will bring in like $5,000 to somebody. And so, or $50,000, depending what it is. So it's like there's so many dangers going that direction. But we're going to know that when the trust goes out of the system, it's all going to come down to commodities, artwork, whatever that you have for trade, a car, a second car that that you could give up, something of value. It's all going to come down to that. But as much as everyone's going to like musical chairs and grab onto their medals and hoard it under their pillow, God forbid, or whatever they do, you therefore, in order to rebuild, is what I was saying, but, in order to rebuild, we're going to have to find a quicker way, especially in today's electronic economy and world economy, to transfer wealth, transfer, monies. And, and using the SWIFT banking system, I don't think that's going to be around for long.
Next.
So there's going to be something that has to come out of it. And if it's going to be based in metals, because no one's going to trust fiat probably, and for a while, I mean, trust me, they're going to try it again in some other generation. But I think the world is all going to learn what the term fiat is. When Grandma and Aunt Mary are sitting there talking about fiat, which they never even knew what the term was before, then we've kind of gone to the general acceptance level. But then, it'll be probably half a generation at least where it'll be metals, commodities, period, end of story. You don't have it, then you have no value to me as far as money. But in order to make transactions and for the country to start to gear up again and interact with the world, it has to have something electronic. So therefore, I know this is obvious, but you need to have some form of modern tokenized gold or something tokenized of a commodity to work. So some system has to happen. And in order for that to happen, you have to have a repository, for having it, right? Now, of course,
Phranq is describing the Federal Reserve.
Then it comes down. Wait. Then it comes down.
It was backed by gold. Yeah, it was silver certificates. I mean, you might as well just be a Fed, man.
That was good. Exactly. In theory, right. So, but at that point, it's going to come down to, and this is where the government, the word. Wait, no, it's not just Federal Reserve.
This time it might be actually.
Wait. No. Wait. What I was about to say before you rightfully interrupted me, that was a good point, is that it comes down to the T word, which we don't have anymore. Trust, exactly. Trust in an institution.
Pay cash.
And it used to be trust in institution. Right? I know. It's just, it's so hard, especially with talking to a cynical libertarian like Ernie, is like, I grew up with my grandparents, who most of you know, and they were like diehard America because, they immigrated here, lived in America. It was a different time and all. But just to remember the reverence that my great-grandparents even had when I talked to them about the government. They trusted the government. And it's such a foreign concept for today, not to mention, I don't disagree
it's run
with
by us.
But
did you read the pamphlet?
And look, it wasn't like the government wasn't corrupt back then. They had the Teapot Dome scandal and all kinds of things back in the day. And plus they created the Federal Reserve, which was already a whole problem. But there was this trust in the system. But once that trust is gone, it's like with Disney. It's why the Disney stock will never return. Once you lose the trust of the parents, there's no going back. And so therefore, then you have to go to private industry, which is now the Perth Mint or Shift Gold or whatever it is. And it comes down to trust. So it's coming down like being decentralized. And it's like, where do you put your money? Where do you put your children? And where do you put your mind? Those are the three most important things. And you need to trust the institution as your kids, which then, public schools are putting my two daddies in there. So, that's the whole trust issue, hence homeschooling. You need to trust, of course, where you put your money. And if you don't trust it, then it turns into your house and your gun. But at some point, the trust has to be rebuilt somewhere on credibility, which brings that term credibility and authenticity to the internet, which is what you and I have been talked about all the time. That where you put your mind, the third in the trio here, is the same thing. It's credibility and authenticity. And once certain people build up your trust in their brand, like Tim Pool, that's great. And then once you lose your credibility, like Tim Pool in this last week, and we'll talk about that later, then the whole thing collapses and people just move on. So that might be the future. I mean, banks, Wells Fargo or Bank One, they're brands that people built credibility. Well, Bank One would never screw me over. They're Bank One. They're huge. Like, there's a
Bank of America.
There's football stadium, or whatever. It's great. I love football. What's more American than that? So of course, from there, then we're going to start getting to the credit unions, which are more decentralized, right? They're smaller and they're funded or supported by the people. And then maybe if they get screwed over somehow, then you have some kind of, private network banks that of our friends. You have like family corporations doing our own banking. Maybe it comes down to that ultimately, but that's when the trust breaks down. But once the trust breaks us all down into like granular levels and everything, homeschooling our kids, having our gold under our pillow, which I'm not recommending necessarily you do it that way, but you get the point. And then thirdly, of granulization of information and banking and your kids. Well, in order to restructure, because you need, first off, an organized, coherent culture, but we won't go there. But eventually, when something has to bind people together and the culture binds people, then it builds trust. Trust builds culture. Culture builds trust. And then we can somehow rebuild the phoenix coming back. So I think that's what we're really living through now is the inevitable collapse, no surprise to this audience, but into these levels. So is Schiff gold, or is going back just to finish up, and I'll throw it back to you here, is Schiff gold or tokenized gold like Tether gold? Yeah, it's easy to say, just to discount it.
Where's it stored?
As the system is collapsing, I don't blame you. When you understand what's in front of us, I wouldn't be putting if any money, let alone much money into these companies. But the idea, you have to give credit to those that are trying to forge the future, because we're going to have to find a way to network a commodity that is the safety net that we have to have in possession. So maybe we'll tokenize gold from our own accounts. Like maybe we'll have our own individual bank essentially, and we tokenize it ourselves. So you have
we'll trust Phranq to hold it. Phranq, you got it there? Take a picture of it. I want to see it.
That's right. Anyway, but like despite all the cynicism, would you at least admit that in order for a global economy and for America to succeed, competitively, there has to be some form of structure and some way of transferring the value of these commodities in a quicker way than just the old-fashioned days of bringing your gold coin, to buy
or the big galleons that had a bunch of gold and silver that's now sitting on the bottom of the Caribbean.
All right, despite the cynicism, and obviously you get where I'm going with this. I'm not saying to put all your money in some company that's got a shiny, marquee and say, trust us, we won't take it. I get all that. But what's your solution overall? Do you at least acknowledge that we're going to have to find a way to tokenize commodities to be efficient, or do you think we're going to go back to the Old West? What's your solution thought?
I got to say I agree with Phranq, and it'll turn into 6 hours of him trying to convince me, You just look at history. How was value traded? Well, it was local, it was barter, it was trade, seashells, hours labor, whatever the hell. Well, then you needed what was called, they got this newfangled thing called money. Okay, well, what's money? Well, it has to be, durable. It can't evaporate. It can't rust away. It can't. So gold does that. It has to be rare, so it has value. I mean, you're not liquidating air. I mean, except in Spaceballs, you got to, Perrier. But so things that have value are scarce, and it has to have usefulness, utility. It has to be, somebody wants it for something, and it has some use. And then what's the other thing? Fungibility. It has to be able to be cut up. When people say, there's not enough gold in the world, oh, shut up.
Right.
It just gets more valuable. It's just, you got a gold flake that'll buy you a car. I mean, you just keep going down. What you need for value spread. That's why they're saying, if everybody on the planet had 1 ounce of silver, oh my God, kind of thing. So precious metals are going to be getting the rise. And you have like lithium. Lithium is really shooting up, but it's way more plentiful, and it's not really rare, but it's useful, and it is a commodity. Copper, same thing. Copper is probably, I don't know, third, fourth down on value, or as an industrial metal, for use. Then you got palladium and rhodium and platinum and a bunch of unobtainiums, whatever it is that has a special use case for whatever. Mostly, I think it's platinum. Palladium, one of them is used in catalytic converters. So that's kind of a government thing. What happens when they go, screw that, or we're all electric cars now, or we don't care, there's no emissions? Yeah, that plummets, okay? So there's all these little government regulatory kind of, crap playing games with it. when you had wealth recognized as gold, that was a worldwide. It was very good for trade. It was compact. It would you could carry it across borders. You could ship it across whatever, and then you get into the safety of transactions. The vast majority of gold-laden and silver-laden ships, made it, or they wouldn't do it. But a lot of them hit a storm and boom, you're in the Caribbean getting the Atosha, and you're a billionaire. So this is the trade in precious metals has been around since forever. How do you trade it? Well, then you had the vaults, and this is where all this reserve banking crap started. You put them in. People would pay me to hold your gold for you. Well, a lot of people put it there, and here's your little piece of paper saying it represents this much gold. Well, that was easier to go around, like bearer bonds or whatever. That's kind of what they're about. Die Hard. Go watch Die Hard, Christmas movie, first one, and you'll learn about bearer bonds. And a bearer bond it's like cash. Whoever shows up with it, it's not like it was signed to somebody. It's just you better put it in the safe because it's just like holding gold. $600 million in like $1 billion, let's say, in bearer bonds is a hell of a lot easier to move than freaking $1 billion in gold. Then silver has even bigger problems. For the same amount of value in silver, man, you better start getting your forklifts. So this is a lot of the reasons why they would store it and then take some kind of piece of paper or note. One of the things that I thought was really unique and very effective was tally sticks. Do you know what a tally stick is?
No, I don't.
All right. A tally stick. And we started doing that. We were having fun with it. And one of the guys called his trading platform Tally Sticks or something like that. Anyway, way it was worked, you'd have a stick, a branch, a 2x4, okay? And you would put on deposit, and it'd have, it written on whoever would store it. You'd carve in it or burn into it or whatever, a serial number represented whatever. And then you split it. You split the log. You had the other side. When you showed up with your tally stick, it fit and made the full log. It was very complicated rip. I mean, it was like you cut it with a saw. The grain had to match. The ripped log. You split wood for your fireplace. You split one. I guarantee it doesn't fit the others. It's only the one that it ripped from. So that was a tally stick. That was their encryption. Okay. So I'm going. All right, that's cool. That's that's a good way of looking at it. But that still means that they were responsible for holding it, for having it. I show up my tally stick and it ain't there. Your tally stick didn't do you anything. What good was that? So this is kind of the mindset of banking. Now, banks understood they're not all bringing in their notes or all bringing in their tally sticks, so they were lending it out. This is fractional reserve banking kind of stuff. Once they saw that they get away with that, here we go. We need Federal Reserve, and we got, like bookkeepers and stuff. Then you start getting electricity, you get electronics, you're getting ticker tape, you're getting, this different technology to be able with telegraph, it's communications. This is what my presentation is on. I'm going, look, once you got communication, all of a sudden the physical galleon ship of me going from, gold I robbed from Peru and taking it to Spain, that goes away. I just, tokenize it and, send it. This is where the SWIFT system came in. It was an agreement between the banks and they and pinky swear, and it's here, and we have it, and you got to order. We need $20,000. Oh, I'm sorry, you got to order that. Well, maybe have it tomorrow, or you can't get that much. That's kind of your money. You just can't have it kind of crap. So that is why banking is a service. It's a value. Now, they used to pay interest on your savings, interest on your, it's an interest-bearing checking account and all this for us to store your money and use your money and rehypothecate it and kind of pinky swear we won't, and it's gone, okay? So this has evolved into now, when I was a kid, you go and save and the kids, I got some interest, or at least it didn't go away. When we tried to do the South Park thing, we're going to teach our kids and stand to go to the bank and save their money. We opened that Thunderbird Bank, it used to be here. They go back to get it one time. They put a little bit in here, $10. I mean, probably had, I don't know, $40, $50 each of them in there or whatever, and they won't go get it. it was gone. Oh, I'm sorry. You owe us money. You had all these service fees for the account, and it's gone. And I go, lesson learned. That was worth the $50 for each of you kids to learn that freaking lesson. You need to McDuck it. You need to put it in silver. All my grandkids, they get silver. I got $50. You better put it in silver. So right now, next time I go over, we took them to a jewelry place and got junk silver because they had some money. And I said, look, we're going to go get silver. So I took them down there, and we wrote on a piece of paper that went into the box bag of the silver that they got, that put the current value, how much they got, and then when we go and check it, it's going to be what? 2-3 times what they had. It was like $19, $20 when we did this. What lesson are they going to get? McDuck. Now, the reason I say McDuck is a character, Disney character. He's the rich, uncle to the, Dewey, Huey, Louie, whatever. And he was, like rolling around. He had in this cave. He had all this gold and silver he'd jump and roll around in because he actually had it. Okay, that's my point. So this is a innovation that is a theme, follows the same theme. It is a representation of the actual physical. But who has the physical? And how much do I trust him? Peter freaking Schiff on the show did the push for gold money, and we went through this whole process. All right, man, that's a good idea. Let's do it and rock and roll. And it changed. And he and I have talked about this before. Now, is anybody else going to bring this up? Has anybody else gone through the last time he did this?
What did Peter say when you brought it up? I'm just curious, after going through all that.
Well, he was like, yeah, well, I represent it was a good idea, and it's not mine. It's not, Schiff gold. It was a service that, yada, yada, yada. Well, he's going to find out. I'm telling, he's coming on. I told Donna, just now, telegrammed her, I said, all right, get Peter Schiff on. Tell him we're going to talk about tokenization and something else. What was it? And silver, okay? I want to talk about that. Well, he's going to want to talk about that. Of course he is. Peter's going to come on and go, ooh, man, I got the answer, man. Here we go. And I'm going, yeah? Where is it? Then we go with this with gold money, and all of a sudden I got to do know your customer, KYC, and, anti-money laundering if you're not allowed.
We're talking two separate things. I'm not saying that we have to trust everything, and we're going to go through a lot of, distrust and scams, and we're in the Wild West because the system's collapsing.
Maybe you are. I'm trying to avoid it.
I completely agree. That's where this is going to go. There's going to be more distrust, more people desperate, buying onto,
on margins,
numismatic silver and gold. People are going to be ripped off in all different ways. Crypto scams. I mean, people are desperate times, desperate measures. So we're going to see that in many ways. Maybe people need to be screwed over enough times to rebuild. Something I was talking to my dad about. My dad and I had a big fight, a huge fight. It was like back when I was like 20 years old. And this is after I had read the book. I forget who wrote it. It came out in 1986 or something. It was called The Coming Economic Earthquake. It was sort of like before Jekyll Island came out and before, Charles Guyette was really doing stuff. But it was that kind of woke me up. And of course, I've already told the story walking with my family in Times Square and seeing the debt clock when I was like 16 and going and being astounded that everyone just kept walking around me. And I felt like I was in slow motion, like that scene of what was it? Not Vanilla Sky with Tom Cruise when he goes into Times Square and everything like freezes and it was like one of those moments. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about with the. What was I just talking about, Ernie?
That you read the book.
The economic earthquake about just it all coming. Oh God, I forget now. It'll come back.
Yay!
I know. I'll throw it back to you. No, it's a good point.
So the bottom line on this is there going to be tokenization of money? Is it going to be? Well, what are you going to define money? They tried to eat. Let me finish. They tried to eat tokenize. Oh God.
Yeah, but it's about trust. I mean,
whatever. Let me finish my point.
All right.
They are looking at doing exactly the same thing with Bitcoin and ETFs. they're going, oh, yeah, it's electronically traded kind of, well, why not just trade the Bitcoin? Well, we don't want to trade the Bitcoin. We want to keep the Bitcoin and then create another level of doing it. Going, this is more reserve banking bullshit, you know? It's either you have it or you do not have it. That's why silver was, you know, the poor man's gold, which meant it was a currency. Then you can walk around with silver, which a lot of us do. You know, like Jay Noon, good friend, his two little kids, they go to any event. They're always asking cute little girl, boy, well, you take silver for, and I want to buy the apps. Freaking-lutely. A lot of these street vendors, they know, and they know they're trying to teach their kids and bring that in, which is why when in 2009, 10, around in there, we created a silver calculator app. Now everybody's got them, but we were the first to do that. One of my listeners did it, and we pimped it. And man, because when you go to these events like PorcFest and so on, if you're wanting to trade silver for stuff, well, what's its value? What's it worth today? How many silver quarters do I get in junk silver of ID? I need to know. Well, the calculator app knew the spot. It knew what each coin was worth in dollar amount, and it got to where it's like $4, you know, for a silver dime. You know, what are they now? You know, it's a tenth. Yeah, it's probably like $5 now for each silver dime. 10 cents. I bet you it's about $5 now, because it's a tenth of a dime. It's a tenth of a dollar, and a dollar is 0.77 ounce, so it's not a full ounce, so it's probably like, you know, 480 or something like that. So this is the value gone. So dime a dozen. That's what it meant. A silver dime got you a dozen eggs. Right. That's what it meant. So I'm going, and then they have some retailers that are selling gasoline. I remember Signs, you know, they're making this point after the Levolution. They're up there going, dime a gallon. You know, you come here to my little, you know, gasoline store. I got, you know, gas station, and guess what? Convenience store there. It's a dime a gallon. If it's a silver dime, right, then it's a dime a gallon. Okay, so this is going to happen. It's all, like you say, it's trust. Where is the actual silver? Who do I trust? What, and would I do it all in one? Are they going to try and take them out? Because every single effing time that this has been attempted with gold money, with e-gold, and with ETFs and Bitcoin, it's always turned down to somebody, and usually it's the same people. It is the people that Trump knows. It's a regulatory whatever the hell. It's a guy that was ex-Goldman Sachs of, you know, whatever, and it's GoldmanSachs.gov coin. Whatever it is, it's going to come down to the ease of the SWIFT transaction system of the whatever kind of, no. So then here comes BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, but now it's like 140 countries in competition with, and I remember in Jakarta, we had an NGO that was there doing, oh, you're going to be in competition with the International Monetary Fund and charities of little countries, and we want to get on your gimme list right off the bat. So they were just, you know, doing that. But we learned a lot. It was in Jakarta that they had this meeting. This is probably like a decade ago. And what happened was, he was there and he told us all what was going on. What was going on is BRICS kind of duplicated all of the stuff that the SWIFT system and the Bank International Settlements and, you know, the state banks and Federal Reserve and all that kind of crap is part of. Well, that SWIFT system is the electronic transaction of dollars around the world, and the petrodollar, which is Saudi Arabia. They go, look, we're going to keep you in power. The Saud family, you got it going on. No worry about it. We got a whole bunch of F-15s. We'll give you, we'll patrol. We love you a long time. But all the money that you make, when we are buying all your oil, you got to invest back into U.S. Treasury bonds. You know, not gold. You know, we don't want you to do that. We want you to buy our debt. That's what the deal. That was the petrodollar. Well, everybody buys treasuries, and they use the SWIFT system to ship around the value of buying stuff and whatever, but they needed dollars to buy oil for Saudi Arabia. That was the birth of the petrodollar after 72 when Nixon went off the gold standard. Well, now it's because we got F-16 standard. So you go, okay, here we go. Now, what is it that's going to replace, let me finish, what's going to replace that, okay? The BRICS system comes in, and they go, we're going to have basket of currencies. We're going to this, we're going to that, and China comes up with a gold-backed yuan. They're going, now they got BRICS just announced. It's like last week, the unit. In Star Trek, they go, well, how many credits is it going to credit? Well, you might as well just say units. How many units of whatever? Well, this unit is going to be electronically used to represent what? Gold. How much gold? Is it a fraction of the gold? Is it a reserve of the gold? Is it a percentage of the gold? And where's this gold stored? And if it's going to be the communist Chinese government, in Shanghai, kiss our ass. We sure as shit ain't doing that. So then they come back, well, we were testing the waters a little bit. So their Belt and Road Initiative, Silk Road Trading Worldwide China thing, they go, all right, we're going to have the gold deposited and placed Shanghai, Europe, Africa, Australia, wherever they're putting these gold that you can go in and cash it in, your tokenized, crypto, blockchain, whatever the hell, and actually get the gold right up until you can't, okay? So this is to answer this concern that I want my physical, I got to go to Shanghai. Yep, and you're not allowed. So they go, nope, we need it decentralized around the world. Well, do I trust them? Pinky swear? No. Governments, really, seriously, bankers, now they'll do it to maintain credibility right up until they don't want to, and then they don't. Oh, it's a war, and, life sucks for you. So but does it have gold as a base to keep its value? Yeah. Are you able to electronically set? Yeah. Does it use blockchain and instantly and settles, have 50 gazillion commissions on a bunch of things? Yeah. I'd probably get some kind of cut. But, it's like transaction fees, and then that could get changed, so there's that. But is it tied to gold? And I kept saying this. I go, as soon as they have even a driest martini with a little atomizer perfume thing, with a little bit of vermouth on it, so they can call it a martini, but it's really just vodka. I mean, when you do that a little bit with the gold, boom, here it goes. Just even say the word gold tied to in some way. And that's what's going on right, not later. So all of this stuff does not matter. The Federal Reserve, Bank of International Settlements, International Monetary Fund, the petrodollar, done. They are in competition with a reference and an homage to gold, to actual physical commodities on the BRICS thing. In that atmosphere, I don't trust them. Here comes Peter Schiff. Well, you can trust me more than China, communist China, or Peter Schiff. Schiff gold, we're going to, whatever, and tokenize. It's going to be popular because of these relationships. But ultimately, it is always going to go down to who freaking has it, holds it, whatever. When the Nazi regime went down, whatever gold they had and promises they had don't mean squat until, Kelly, what was it? Not Hogan's Heroes, Kelly Heroes or whatever, the World War II movie, with Telly Savalas or whatever. They go and get the gold from the German, whatever. So you go in, it's going to be who has the gold. Who owns it? It's gold. Yeah, but that's mine. It's got a serial number. It did until I melted it down. Now what? Okay? So that is the point that I'm making. You are never, ever, 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 ever going to get away from the physical possession of what is real money. And real money is touchy-feely, not electronics. It just represents it. And then, like you say, trust. And I don't trust any of these son of bitches, because even if they're allowed to do it, it is, or not, got a gun pointed at them and a shiny badge, and the crown says you get a permission slip. Even then, it changes. The crown changes. Political winds change. I got a gun and I took it change. Hacks change. Robberies change. I mean, it's all who physically has it. So that's my point. And I'm going to get Peter on. We're going to go over the history of this, exactly what I was just saying, that he knows, that I shared with him, that we have done this. And it's going to come down to, and where's it stored? And who, guards it? Who has regulations over it? Who has the anti-aircraft ion cannon of, you're freaking not going to do it and it's on the moon? I mean, how are you going to do it? Goes to SpaceX. We're going to put the data centers with unlimited power with panels in space. We already got our satellites. We're doing high-speed communication already. We're just going to, pick one of our internet Starlink satellites and turn it into put extra servers on it and be a data center with unlimited power and kick the living shit out of anybody else that's using, any kind of AI. Our power is free. We don't need a nuclear power plant. We got Starship. We're going to put a bunch of satellites. And when they go public, it is going to go stupid. But who controls it? Who allows? Who says? This is where they're being all butt buddies with Trump. Okay? Woo, how come? Give me a hug. All right? Why? Because they know this. This is, you got Sam Altman and all of their OpenAI, all this kind of stuff. It's going to go to shit. Why? Principle. And then let you comment, and then I want to tell my Grok story of, oh my God, be afraid. Phranq, you're muted.
There we are. Hey, no, thanks for letting me in, but I give you credit because I did had a mind fart there, so I appreciate you help jumping in there. So yeah, here's what I was talking about, this huge fight I had with my father when I was around 20. But before I get to that, I just want to mention. Well, actually, I'll just tell you, the fight was about myself being very conservative with my savings. This is back in my 20s. And my father, who, divorced my mom years earlier, so I never even grew up with my father, he was trying to understand how come I wasn't learning about money. And of course, my big argument was because you left my mom, not to make this drama here. That's why I didn't learn anything about money. I just lived in a very conservative family from my grandparents who survived the Great Depression. And he kind of mocked my grandfather, which set me off because my grandfather lived extremely, let's just say, beneath his means. I mean, I remember 1992, 93, he got his first color television. We had an old black and white TV that I grew up with all during the 70s and 80s and early 90s that had vacuum tubes in it. And when you'd walk in the room, every time if the floor shook, you would see the screen just like shake. I mean, I just grew up like that. He just felt the TV works just fine. I mean, and it wasn't like we're poor, but he lived that way. He would just put white sheets on top of all the furniture in the house. He would buy a brand new sofa, but then covered it with old sheets just to protect it so it would last, 50 years because he wasn't going to buy another one. I could keep going with I mean, we had in our house, for instance, got to sound like an old person. In our house, he would watch the hot water. And even though, again, we were not like destitute at all, it was like a little suburban house. But he put these little water devices on the spigot for the shower, and we were instructed that we could use some hot water to first rinse off. Then we had to turn off the spigot so that then we had to wash ourselves with no water, right? So you're cold because he also didn't put the heater on in the house. He wanted to save money. Talk about miserly, but that's how I grew up. And then you were able to turn the hot water on really quick to rinse yourself off, and then wind up using a towel. And he would time you. He would time us. He would listen for when the water was going. So nowadays I take long showers on purpose because I can, and my wife yells at me and says I'm wasting water. I'm like, you know what? I'm making up for like 15,
just get more solar panels.
No, exactly. So I could keep going about examples of growing up with people from the Great Depression, but that's how I was brought up, and I saw it. It's why I learned a lot of this early. My father was out there in the hanging and banging, late years of the 80s and having girlfriends, and he'll admit all of this. He talks about it, but. So he couldn't understand how my grandfather was losing all this money on the table by not investing. It's like, hey, you could like flip your money and do this and do that. And I started to understand this dichotomy in trust in the system. And I started to see that my grandfather kind of went through, he did, a form of PTSD. And it's even heightened because apparently he lost both his mother and father before he was 20. They both died from different causes. And at the funeral of his last parent, when he was like 19, he had apparently his father had a couple dollars in debt, and these relatives came over and they kind of hornswoggled him for the money. They forced him to pay the money at the funeral. They said, hey, so here he is, lost his last parent, and he's being forced to, his own family saying, you got to pay up all this money. And so he had nothing. And then and this is from the Depression and everything. So you can imagine and not to make this a drama again with my grandfather, but everyone from that generation probably has their stories. So I grew up in that house. And I defended my grandfather over his views of things. And anyway, I saw the culture of money different. And that's also when I learned about Irv Homer, which I've talked about on the show, is kind of our version of Charles Goliath for those of you in the Arizona market. So anyway, but by living that way, my point is that I saw
There's a point.
What a lack of trust looks like and how it hits someone in a fundamental way of how he just exists and sees the world. And that level of lack of trust, of that almost, you could say, economic paranoia that seems so odd, especially during the raging 80s, everyone's all partying economically, that's where we're going to have to get to. And it took a while for my grandfather to even trust going to a bank. And I won't even tell how he dealt with banks. And he would argue, literally scream at people if he was cheated out a penny from a cashier. He would flip out. So therefore, how do we go through this cycle? And I one last Phranq meta conversation that deals a little bit with culture. You'll get what I'm going from here. But and sociopaths, because I think a lot of this is this cycle of where trust is about trust. So for most of human history, we had we would be in teepees or very, very small groups where you only had the same 10, 15 people you knew your entire life. That was it. Most of human history, you only knew 10 people in your entire life. It's so hard for people today to recognize that. But back then, if you were a thief, if you were a sociopath, you had to be a sociopath to backstab the very 10 people that you knew your entire life. You got to keep that in mind. You only know 10 people. Are you going to start backstabbing them and lying and cheating and whatever else? I mean, you have nowhere to go. So guess what? You'd get banished.
Sociopath.
Yeah, if you're exactly, you're a sociopath. So they would get banished. And that was an easy thing. You didn't have to have trials, have jails. You just gone, right? Because no one is going to support you. So then later on, we started to have villages or towns.
No,
and
politicians
at that point,
just bail you out, put you back on the street.
Yeah. There were no politics. Well, I guess there was always an alpha in these little small communities. But then later on, you had small villages, maybe some towns, and at that point, you would kill the sociopath, the thief, the whoever, or put them in the stockyards. Is that what they're called? Like back in the Pilgrim days, but. You would kill them typically. I mean, that's when, the Salem witch trials would kill people for less. Then we start having cities. And then with the cities, now we have laws because we have more and more people. And you can't just be banishing all of them, although some of them were. But in cities, now we have incarceration, right? We have laws. We think we're more civilized. And now we start taxing people. And when you have more people, there's more conflict. And you don't always know who's right is wrong. And now you've got an objective person who doesn't know anybody in the conflict, right? You have a judge because, back in the day when there's only 10 people in the community, everybody knew each other. And the sitting elder knew everybody and basically made the judgment and everyone, believed it. It's like, if your grandfather would have a decision. But with cities now, we have to have more objective incarceration kind of things. And then you start having large societies, and this is before the internet, by the way, before electricity, but you have large cities, the early New York, for instance. And then you start to have a society where sociopaths start to become entrenched. They start to, because now they can start hiding in the system. And as time goes on, the culture, especially in our, in the Western world, the culture starts to get divided. And the more divided the culture, that's where sociopaths can kind of live. It's like the god of the gaps in a way. They can live in the gaps of a divided culture. The more unified culture, the harder it is to exist in that. But it's like divide and conquer. So then over time, then we have more modern society with electronics. And now that we have recordings and television and YouTube, especially now, sociopaths can't hide. It's much, much harder because, anything you say to one person, now it's recorded and you can show it to the other person. Before, they could tell 5 people 5 different things and pass a lie detector on all of them. But now, and that person will deny what they said to each person. Now you can't get away with it. And I think that is another reason why, as the trust is going down, and now we're exposing these sociopaths in all different levels. The whole, we see just how entrenched and how corrupt the whole system is as we've gone further and further away from our roots of, 10 people in a small little community. Which I'm not saying we have to go back to that, although Ernie might be doing that, and God bless you. Maybe I'll join you if I'm invited. But the thing is that's kind of where this is going, right? Is the system collapses, and then the problem is how does it reset? It has to be reset by a reorganization of these concepts of culture. That's why Ernie and I.
They're going to play ode to culture.
Wait,
it's going to reset what they want.
Wait. Hey, when I say culture, I'm just talking about a group of people who.
Whatever. Skip to the end.
The smaller the group, the tighter the culture, and the easier the culture is. That's the point. I'm not saying we all have to just go off into the desert and have just 5 people living together in a commune, but that's what kind of communes are as well. But we need a reorganization of technologies that's being blown apart and restructured. And how do we start communicating with each other again in a way that is safe, that is reliable, that doesn't have the deep state listening, if that's ever possible. But these are the questions that the future is going to have to deal with. To trust, again, is that the communication streams can be trustworthy. And then the other is the culture, that we trust our neighbors. I always bring up, and I know you guys heard a million times, the fact that, every woman around me thinks I'm crazy for having my daughter walk home from grade school. When I did that, people look at me like I'm from Mars, like I want to kill my daughter and she'll be abducted by aliens or something. It's unbelievable, the fear, but the fear is there when you don't have a unified culture. So anyways, after this trust is lost in the system, then of course, when people are lying, they don't have value, they don't trust the money, they don't trust the technology. So then you have to rebuild it, and not only technology and culture, but also brand. So from technology and culture, you'll start to see brands that try to find new ways to reorganize those two concepts. And brands, and what kind of brand are we talking about? Well, here's an example. Peter Schiff, it's an example of a brand, right? He's building a brand, just like Trump rode on a brand, and you acknowledged that early on when we did the Trump report. Schiff is making a brand, and he put his reputation almost on that gold money, but it was not his company. And it kind of looked bad for Peter Schiff, and you're completely right for calling him out. So as an example, in order to build trust again after we all turn into my grandfather, which I think is going to be about a 10-year cycle, at least 10 years, when people lose everything, when their pensions go, when the gold that you thought you had.
Hurry up, man. We got to get to other issues.
Is taken. This is an important pointer. This is the largest.
So make it.
Trying to go. Because you're talking about trust. I'm talking about how do we wind up redoing trust? And it's going to be about people putting their reputations, I think, on the line. And it's going to come down to reputations of people that we trust, which is brand and community and culture. For instance, Peter Schiff. So if Peter Schiff will say, I'm going to make my new company with tokenized gold, but I'm putting my rep and my money in. It's my fortune is on the line. I would think about giving money for him to hold my quote-unquote gold, because I've spent decades. I know Peter in an indirect way. I already have my money with him, Europe Pacific and other things. So I could see putting a percentage in someone and trusting them, because it's not just some random company. It's at a core, it's culture. And I'll give you one other example. And then finally you can talk, Ernie. Please. Oh, my God. By comparison.
All that was a commercial for Schiff.
No, it wasn't.
Tokenization?
I'm using that as an example.
Okay, go. Next one, go.
Would be Freedom's Phoenix. Freedom's Phoenix is another example of a tight community, of a smaller community where people trust each other a lot more than outside the system. Granted, we have a few feds probably floating around, which, hello. But with that said, it's a small community why do we trust each other? Because we share a very, very niche community and like-mindedness over certain issues. And it's like a microcosm of what the cultures or villages or small communities used to be. So, it's just that it's being put down when people do this. I mean, God knows when North Korea or Russia wants to do their own thing, the globalist agenda is you're not allowed to. You have to join the collective. Well, you're against the collective. Most of this audience is against that. Why do they want against the collective? Because, that's the only way to rebuild trust is talking to each other and being these small communities. So that's maybe where we start to pull our gold, our resources together to have micro communities where maybe then we can create an app app. Like each community has their own app, and then they start interfacing into this new global electronic ecosystem where we still have our gold in communities that we trust at its core through culture in villages, and this electronic villages, we'll call it. And then that's one way we can move on. Because to sit back and say, if you don't own it, you don't have it, and anyone else is going to steal it.
You don't own it, you don't have it.
Well, I think that's where this will probably go. You know, I think, but it doesn't stop there, Ernie. It can't stop there. That's where, you're like my grandfather about it, and I get it.
How far off was your grandfather?
Excuse me?
How far off was your grandfather of being correct?
No. Well, what he lived through, he was correct, right? But then it was rebuilt. Now, it was rebuilt wrongly because then after they rebuilt it, immediately
they're going to rebuild it right for my benefit. Yeah,
then they took us off the gold standard and they corrupted it. Exactly. But in order for America to continue, it couldn't just crawl into a hole and say we're going to hold gold and we're going to sit there and do international trade by carrier pigeon. Go ahead.
Peter's going to come on. We're going to talk about it. He's going to have answers. He's going to try and make Field and Pinky swear and I'll and the best we can do and whatever and all that kind of crap. Will I do it? Probably. Why? Convenience. To test. So I got another I actually did it story. That's the biggest reason. So I can go, I told you so, and it's worth, I don't know, a few $1,000 for me to do that. This is not, you're going to make money. This is not going to be, it's going to be, because it's tied to the value of gold. Or is it tied to gold? Is it, I own like a gold money, it was a amount of gold, not the value of the gold, it was actual gold. So if I get tokenized, gold, is it the gold or is it the rising and falling value of that gold? I need to know the difference. Do you know? Phranq, you're muted. Do you know? Is shift money going to be tokenized of the value of the gold or the actual amount of the gold? Do you know?
I don't. I believe it's the latter. I'm not positive.
Something I need to know. I'll go on, I'll go, all right. So we'll do it because if it links to a debit card or credit card, or I could do it through my bank, or something, whatever, like Gemini would, and every time you spend it, you get, some cash back in Bitcoin, and it adds to because the more money you spend, the more you make. If you spend $1 million, you make
none of that, Ernie. And honestly, my impression is it's none of those little frills and games.
We're going to find out.
Solid.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out.
Yeah,
we're going to find out.
That's what he's
Speculation now don't mean nothing. We're going to find out. And when I find out, and I'll go, all right, so that might be more convenient than me walking around with precious metals in my pocket and use the debit card if I get and whatever. And is it surveilled? Is there a list? Is there an accounting? Of course there is. There has to be. It was spent here to do that, or, whatever or not. I mean, we're going to find out. And I guarantee that with this Genius Act and everything, surveillance is the biggest motivation for them doing it. They are going to be able to glean, and are they going to be able to turn it off? Well, gold money it's kind of yours. You can't have it now. Ask Derek. So I'm going, and me. So I'm going, all right. So we'll do a show on this. We'll put this issue to bed now because we don't know.
Yeah.
What we do know is they're going to try and turn gold into a digital representation, just like they do with ETFs, just like they do it with paper, just like do it with fractional reserving, just like they do it with, it's sitting there and it's kind of sort of almost using the value of my, sailor stock crap, and all that gets manipulated in and it's gone. So Peter knows all this stuff. So hopefully he's going to come up with a solution and make it more convenient to be able to trade, and we're actually trading precious metals with tokenization. But it's going to come down to where the physical metal is. I guarantee it.
Well, you know,
Guarantee it.
This is the quandary that we all have because
Ain't no quandary to me.
If you're dealing with Peter, and Peter already has, let's just for argument's sake, had the trustworthiness from, you know, you've been friends and knowing him all this time. If you're going to put your park money with someone, assuming he's able to
Gold
answer,
had the trust, and the F-16s didn't give a shit.
Yeah, I know. But if he's able to answer all those questions and still, if you're kicking the tires of this and still everything looks good, you know, it's like, all right, but let's say if it doesn't, you kick the tires and you're like, you know, I still don't trust, even though I trust Peter, I don't trust the system because of this and this, they can still take it, whatever. Well, then it comes down to that a commodity-based system, I guess, ultimately can't work if the trust is broken to such a degree where we can't even crawl out to work with something like this. Look, maybe what Peter's bringing up is too early. We have to go through my grandfather's PTSD for a generation before we get there. I'm acknowledging that. I'm just saying in time, you know, when our country doesn't trust each other, other countries do. BRICS is a point of trust. And the people who trust and come together will be able to accelerate. If we're mired in distrust and we're hoarding all of our monies, then we're not going to be able to get out of this swamp because it's trust. And therefore,
I got my gold. I ain't slumping.
You know what the answer is? I can't believe I'm making this point. The answer is, and some of you are screaming this out right now, it's Bitcoin. I mean, that's the whole point of Bitcoin, in essence, is you get rid of the commodity underlying it, so we don't have to listen to Ernie go, I don't trust anything and nothing's going to get me. Okay, fine. Then there you go. Then that's where Bitcoin plays in.
No, it's not a currency. It's a store of value. When you got $60 transaction fees, kiss my ass.
Well, so you sell your gold and buy Bitcoin, and that way you have your commodity turns into a transaction.
All right. Enough. Audience, do you understand Frank's point? Hopefully. Do you understand mine? Simple. Absolutely. Move on. We're going to find out after I interview Peter again on this very subject.
Did you have a date?
Then we'll know. Then. All right. One thing of interest I wanted you to, God, people still there. You know, it's I want to get into the Grok thing, but you mentioned Tim Pool's in some controversy. Oh my God, you know, fanboy of Tim Pool, Phranq Tamburri. Tell me what's up.
Well, it's, you know, for you especially, it's going to be the greatest. I don't care, but I have to point out, it's not just about Tim Pool. It's really about this, just the breakup. It's like going through a divorce of the modern, not the old Republican Party of what's left of it's on Fox News, but it's even the new ecosystem of ecosphere of Republican politics of Tim Pool and Candace and Megyn Kelly and the Piers Morgan. I hate to call them, not these are Republican. It's not even Republican. It's us versus them. And during this last couple election cycles, this whole Trump phenomena, it really stopped becoming, as we've said on the show, it's not about Democrat, Republican, or left or right. It's us versus them, meaning it's the people versus they, them, those in the deep state. That's kind of what it's come down to. So that's what Trump represented, right? Drain the swamp. Right, drain the swamp. That was, and build the wall and drain the swamp. That was kind of the core, was an anti-corruption campaign at its core, that people were losing trust, as the last segment we just moved from, it was falling apart. Well, anyway, now the people that thought that we were all unified in the distrust of the system, now they're fracturing at the seams. It's turned into this whole thing with, and really, with Candace Owens going after Turning Point USA and the Charlie Kirk thing. I'm not getting all into the details. You can, if you want to learn, go watch all these shows. But it's coming down to a true division that I don't think can be healed. And it's happening right before the midterms. Not that I care. I mean, even Candace famously said, I don't care if we lose the midterms. And I agree with her. The midterms don't matter. I mean, this is beyond
Doesn't matter,
that.
I don't care.
Exactly. So what's happening is half, if not more, of the base that this new this unification that Trump put together, it's splitting now. And a lot of the younger people, the activist people, are basically saying it doesn't matter because if you don't trust the underlying system, then nothing matters, right? And why is this distrust coming from? We won't spiral into another conversation on this for right now, but it seems to be all roads keep leading to the interaction with Israel. And that's what the Tucker Carlson show that just went on last night. He had a banger of a monologue taking on Ted Cruz and the establishment again over the
Gonna
influence
put that show in the archive for Phranq.
and about Qatar, right? They're calling it. Mark Levin now famously calls Tucker Carlson a Tucker Qatarlison, which is kind of funny. I think even Tucker laughed about it. But I mean, it's all breaking down into this, and so the turning point has been called out by the Candace Owens group of wanting more information about Charlie Kirk's murder. The Department of Justice does not seem to be answering any questions. And you might say, well, it's because they're part of an investigation. But this is the same Department of Justice, whether under Trump or the last administration, where you don't get answers for anything, right? I mean, the UFOs over Jersey and the Nevada shooter and, Trump's assassin and, JFK, it's still holding up and all the stuff we've gone, and then Epstein, of course. So, when Trump famously said, Epstein who? You're still looking at Epstein. I've covered that a million times on the show. I would never let that go. But that was the flashpoint where the trust of the whole system went for a big part of the coalition, of Trump's coalition. And so they're just out. So when this Charlie Kirk issue's coming up and there's no answers, maybe it was simple. Maybe this guy who wants to marry a furry is the guy who was the assassin. It's that simple. But you know what? We're living in a time now where no one trusts anything. You say it's raining outside, people will have to go outside to, if it's raining on you, you're still not going to trust it. So that's where we're at. Turning point, surprisingly, is not engaging Candace to at least answer the questions. Even if they think Candace is crazy, answer the questions and prove her crazy, or at least pretend. Say, you know what, Candace, that's a great thought. We were thinking the same thing, and I know we love Charlie and this and that, but here's our stance on it. Fine. Instead, they purposefully buried it, tried to ignore it. They thought this would go away, both them and the Department of Justice, and it hasn't. And they thought it would go away before the Turning Point rally, which is next week. And so it hasn't gone away. It's magnified every week. And now they have a firestorm on their hands. And I don't mean just Turning Point, but the Turning Point represents, the entire marketing machine for the establishment that was taking it over through apparently AIPAC and that whole story.
Israel.
So I know this is getting into the drama that Ernie hates, but this is what is cracking at the seams. And then with all of this, you had Tucker Carlson just yesterday took a side because people are asking him on what his side is, because everyone's got to take a side now. It's kind of like you have a divorce and these two people, and the guy thinks that everyone's going to side with him, that his wife cheated on him or whatever, and it's obvious you're going to be with me. And then the wife thinks, oh, well, he hit me first before I cheated, so all of our friends are going to go with me. And so, and each friend has their own reason for picking. Unfortunately, they're forced to pick a side. Even friends that don't want to pick a side, they're kind of forced into it, and then it just rips apart everything. That is literally what's happening now. Tucker just came out and said that, look, I love Candace. I love Erica Kirk. I don't want to tick anyone off. But after just finishing, his own expose about the Butler shooter, what's his name, Crooks, and how much the Department of Justice is sitting there flying around Kash Patel's girlfriend on a plane and not giving us any information on the assassin, Tucker, the journalist, comes out and does his does more of an expose of information than we ever learned, even from Trump's DOJ. So, you know what I've learned on top of other cases that I've researched, as Tucker Carlson,
he's always right.
Is that I don't trust anything that the Department of Justice says. So let Candace just poke around. Why would you jump on her for that? Do I agree with Candace's every view? Maybe not. But you know what? It's about the lack of trust. And that's what Tucker wound up coming on the side for, which is, blowing this thing up. So finally, since you asked me the question originally about Tim Pool, Tim Pool's ratings have been crashing.
This is all lead up to Tim Pool.
Yeah, I know. Well, at least I'm thorough. Give me credit for that. So Tim Pool, you get the popcorn. I mean,
go.
So Tim Pool has been, his ratings been crashing. A lot of it is at first after the election. People get tired of politics for a while. Then the whole AIPAC and the Epstein stuff came out, and he didn't cover any of this, right? And I covered that on the show. The fact that many of these programs like Benny Johnson and Tim Pool were suddenly AWOL talking about the biggest story of, wait, Epstein who? Like, you're just going to drop that? I couldn't fathom it, but people were seeing this. And then people were linking up, which I remember at the time we covered also in Freedom's Phoenix. Last year, right before the election, there were a couple events with some of these podcasters. One was with Ben Shapiro and many of the pro-Zionist or Jewish, actually it was just Jewish influencers. And Adelsons were there and Ben Shapiro, and they talked about it. And that was when they finally gave up on Nikki Haley and all of their plan Bs. Didn't work out. They decided, all right, Trump's inevitable. Then they went and they gave him tons of money, and now all of a sudden they're suddenly MAGA, right? So that wound up happening. But also Tim Pool went with a group of up-and-coming influencers, and many of you might remember he was invited to a private dinner with Bibi Netanyahu. And he didn't talk about it at first. People had found out afterwards that he was there with these podcasters, and they said, "What the heck? You're having a meeting with Bibi?" And of course, Tim's defense is, "Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they gave me a call, and if a foreign leader asks me to do an interview or to have a discussion, how could I turn that down, right? I'm trying to get more information and spread the word, whatever." So they said, "Well, what did they say?" And he comes back with, and I'm probably saying this wrong, Ernie, correct me. Was it Chatham House rules, or whatever, where apparently people get together
under the rose.
Yeah. It's like you can acknowledge you met with somebody and you can acknowledge the general theme, but you agree that everything's off the record, right? So you have Tim Pool going to a meeting with Bibi that he didn't talk about at first, and when he's outed, he goes, "Oh, Chatham House rules, and there's nothing to see here. Move along." And then, suddenly, all of a sudden, he drops the Epstein story. And with all this together, his ratings have been just plummeting because, he's talking about, I don't know, some woke story. We're kind of past woke, given what we're seeing now in, the economy and what's going on with Epstein and with Israel and all of this. I mean, we've moved to a whole nother level. That's why Nick Fuentes has sucked all the air out of the room, along with Candace and all of this that's happening. Nick Fuentes, by the way, just did a huge interview with Piers Morgan, kind of like there was the epic showdown where he tore apart Piers Morgan. That's worth a watch, Ernie, just to see that, because the establishment media now Piers represents finally got Nick Fuentes on. But anyway,
no, he tried to do the same thing with Alex Jones, and I remember Alex, probably wouldn't be my method, but he was screaming, "The answer to blah 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 is 1776." I
remember that.
Yelling at that. So it's the same kind of thing. He does it. Nick Fuentes thinking they're going to try and be more reasonable and kind of that kind of bullshit, and they take the opportunity to yell at Piers Morgan because he's such a tool. So Oh
yeah, he's not as smart. Yeah, he's not as smart as he thinks. But with all this milieu, all of this has been happening just the last week or so. Tim Pool suddenly comes out, just flip it out at Candace Owens. He called her the C word live on the air. He was screaming, using more F-bombs than Eddie Murphy at his prime. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Like what guy? And he flipped out. And then there was, of course, the whole internet was going, what happened to Tim? Like, of course, no one's been watching Tim for a while. And then he flips out at Candace and saying how I'll be the only person brave enough to take her on, that she's a plant, she's crazy, this woman is a sociopath, and she's evil, and she's single-handedly trying to destroy Charlie Kirk's
he got
legacy.
his 3x5 card of what to do.
No,
in his
exactly.
Check.
It's like what his APEC check cleared for $7,000 apparently, because he's losing all this money.
Zeros.
His ratings have gone, as I said, have gone down. He's got this whole mini empire of how many employees in his compound, and to keep this thing going, probably did not expect this collapse in revenue, and so now he's really in a tough spot. So anyway, Candace responded. It's been like this back and forth, and then Tim Pool flipped out even worse with a bigger rant. And that's kind of where everything's at now. But so now it's it's Candace versus Tim. And look, I'm embarrassed even talking about this on the air. I appreciate some of you listening and going, God, is Phranq really just get off on the drama like I'm like watching a soap opera? I really don't care for it, but it's newsworthy about how this is going to play out with the midterms. And we're seeing the fracture of MAGA, I mean, to its core, But the reunification, what I predicted on the show for months now, I'm seeing this in real time, and other people are noticing it, of the half of MAGA that's split off, that's saying, this whole thing could burn as far as MAGA if we don't have trust in the system and the Department of Justice. If there's no justice, then there's no support. And then you've got the Democrats on their side, the anti-establishment Democrats, like the Young Turks. Like there's many others. There's others I'm kind of discovering as my algorithm on my YouTube has been changing. It's fascinating. And you're starting to see, the disenfranchised
how much they control
people
Phranq's
don't trust
brain.
the system on both sides. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you'll make that assumption. But I find it, like from a sociological perspective, finding these groups coming together, where Anna Kasparian is spending most of her time defending Tucker and Candace Owens. I mean, it's incredible. And then you have, other people, right-wing podcasters, melding up with people on the left. And there's a Marjorie Taylor Greene doing her rounds, whatever her ambitions are, but she's planning something. She even talked about on her website that she's creating, I don't want to say a new party, but like a new group that is sort of like America First, without saying America First, because America First.
She says it a lot.
No,
it's going to be like
she
APAC
does,
for America.
She does, but the name of the group is not America First, because right now, for the time being, America First is branded with Nick Fuentes, and I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's trying to do her pseudo downgraded or a more mellow approach, a more safe approach, you could say, selling out the liberals. She doesn't want to leave. She doesn't want to leave Congress as being a battered housewife, or she's not. She's standing up to Trump, but she doesn't want to be perceived that she's leaving as the firebrand and then coming up with the same name that Nick Fuentes has, that the media is completely scared of as Adolf Hitler. But Nick Fuentes and Taylor Greene, despite their own differences, are all in the same camp, along with Candace and all these disenfranchised, angry people who've been spurred, they've been backstabbed, they see through the veil, and it's just like the money system from the last section about trust. It's coming down to this as well. Where you trust where you get your information, where you trust where you're storing your money, and you trust where you put your children. Those are the three, and we're seeing them. We'll talk about children next time, But yeah, so that's the story with Tim Pool. We're seeing a flame out of at least one podcaster, some that I certainly followed so much that Ernie gave me a lot of crap for. Of course, you're the one hanging out with him at Tortilla Flats, so,
Well, the thing, with him, I really was hanging out with, a good friend
with Luke,
with Luke Radowski, and Tim was there with his girlfriend, and we went out desert. They wanted to see night sky, whatever. And it was when I just got back from being subpoenaed to Washington on the Jan 6 thing, and I was telling him about that and so on. Tim didn't want to hear it. I could see he was just like, of course you got to tell him what. And I go, no, I did this for you guys, so you're not intimidated by, you can resist. Well, that was not in his mindset. He was benefiting from the system. So what happened was he was telling me his plans that he wanted to have where he was at. They build a club, and it's kind of a game room, and
like coffee shops. Yeah, kind of cultural coffee shops. He wanted to do
downstairs that they're doing. Then upstairs there would be the studio, and they would do that, and then come down after they're done with the show and party and have people watching it down. Whatever. It was really he wanted to create his own whatever. Which is fine. Knock yourself out. Got your coffee, whatever. But that was his mindset. That's where he came from. He was an Occupy, Wall Street kind of guy. That's how him and, Luke met, and he kind of came around to, seeing all the corruption that I'll go join these other corrupt guys. But it was him building an empire, and he was popular enough at the time, the revenue stream, but it was all dependent on YouTube, Google, ABC, the system, they, them, those. And I'm going, yeah, he's building himself up to this is not going to go well. And so I'm cool, you do you. But he was wanting to, not just have the one, but it would kind of be a franchise or something or whatever. He was building an empire based on revenue from his YouTube channel. That is centralization of it ain't going to work. You got to be in their. You have. That's how they control you. That's why, like Corbett never monetized his YouTube channel. He could have made $1 gazillion. Nah, not doing it out of principle. People support him, subscribe, whatever. We do the same thing. Well, I commented on your whatever. I get all these emails. You got a comment from this and a comment on Roman, comment on that, comment, bitch, you comment. Don't care. I'm not engaging. I got a life. Once you go down that road, the only thing that I respond to is, Occupy the Land, Telegram, and Declare Your Independence, Ernest Hancock, Radio Telegram. If it's that or it's direct email, SMS, my phone number and emails out there, anybody really wants, which they do, I'll communicate with you. But I'm not going on these platforms and sitting there and arguing with a freaking bot. I'm not wasting my time. And it is. I mean, they'll engage, get you to say the dude what I'm going, wow, I'm old enough. I'm going to talk about the Grok thing, you see where I'm going. But I am just, I get it. If they don't know what I think by now, they aren't paying attention, so I don't care. Okay.
Hey Ernie, I think we should get Luke on as a guest for the Trump Report. He'd be a great guest. You know him. He's part of the whole ecosystem.
He won't do it.
He's right in the middle of this.
He won't do it. He won't.
Why? Really? Have you asked?
Oh yeah. No, he and I are friends. We'll do. He'll do a little bit of thing, or he'll cover like. Do a thing on the Love Bus, and every now and then at Pork Fest he'll say, right. Yo, what's up? That we know each other, but no, because it threatens his YouTube channel. That is his thing. He's locked in. He was all masked and hunkered down, locked down, and everything during COVID. It wasn't until the Pork Fest in. I think 21 or something like that, 22. He came out, and then that summer, he and I were at Jay's where we were working on the bus, and he was getting all manned up on guns and knowing how to weld and so on, that he kind of came out, because up until then, when he first came from Brooklyn to the Pork Fest, he's elbowing and masking, kind of, being, I'm like, seriously? I mean, come on, man. Once he got there, he kind of loosened up and relaxed, and Tatiana Moroz, which is a female folk singer, kind of like the female Jordan Page, know her well. She was the same way for months because she played the local bars and did a lot of that went away, and they were just under fear in the Northeast, New York area. I think she was New Jersey or time. It was amazing. Now, she did come on. We talked about this and so on. But of course, I have long conversations with Luke. And when he, was in town for Turning Point, it was a Turning Point thing. Him and Tim were doing the Tim Pool show and so on. So we went out that evening and hung. I get. I'm old enough. I've met a lot of people, and you kind of classify a stereotype of whatever. I get Tim. I understand. He's businessman. He's wanting to be influence, have whatever. He found his niche, but it's dependent on a YouTube channel. And he doesn't have the background or character or whatever to be able to just, walk away, kind of like James Corbett. He's like, no, I know better. Just fundamentally. That's why I work with him a lot. Then you have, there's many other people like this that just, and I don't care. So this is on the Tucker Carlson thing. I want to bring this up. When you're talking, I did see that portion. I think it might have been a YouTube short I had in the background or so on, and him talking about it. And I remember him saying, he goes, I love Erica Kirk, which she's like, running her fingers through the hair of J.D. Vance and endorsing the freaking man. There's something weird going on there. To the point that J.D.'s wife, wasn't comfortable with this, and they make a big deal at her going out not wearing her wedding ring.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe you know that, Ernie. God, you're getting into the gutter. Oh, my God.
Now, all this stuff is not by choice. Everything I know about the Kardashians is involuntary.
Oh, Ernie's going down the tubes. Listen to this.
So this is a Erica. I haven't seen it, but I see the headlines and so on.
Right.
Finally has come up addressing Candace. There's an engagement. They've been ignoring it. It'll go away. Well, it's not going away. So now Erica's got us something. Then Erica and, her freaking, full body contact with J.D. Vance on every occasion she gets, and Trump and whatever. She's playing that I'm beauty queen, blonde kind of, manipulate men thing. She's not old enough to, see where that has limits. But, it's, so she's definitely, because she came to Arizona and her mom was somehow involved with the CIA and they do whatever and kind of they latched on to Charlie Kirk to do and have children and whatever. And it's just weird. And that's not normal. There's something weird going on. And it feels to me it's definitely the third rail, Israel. And I'm just going, yeah, so here we go. So Tucker comes out, and he wasn't necessarily defending Candace. He was defending the ability and the support for asking questions and insisting on answers. He's going, look, man, I that's not my thing. But to get attacked for wanting to know, for asking after I go through all this DOJ, FBI, the bunker, Pennsylvania, shooting this and this guy that and kind of whatever, and you're going, what the F is going on? Where the hell is Cash and Bongino on this? I definitely want to see them. It's just, you always get, these people are in these positions because they're allowed to be. What about Trump? I don't know, how loud is he? They're trying to kill him. I mean, and then does he get the message? Did he surround himself with his buddies? Do you got, the Treasury and Interior guy and all this guy, they're doing whatever. Then all of a sudden here comes Elon Musk with, what your problem is.
Hey, I'm going to come for a second about for Tucker.
Of course you do.
He's also being very strategic in trying to thread the needle. And just to point this out, I'm getting a little pedantic with this, but he said the other day that, I just want to ask questions. And, it's like, I have questions about the Department of Justice and the FBI, and he mentioned, a lot of justification reasons. He says, now, look, I'm not trying to say that I distrust the people running it, people I know, like Dan Bongino. I like Dan Bongino. Obviously, they both worked at Fox. And everyone who knows Dan, Megyn Kelly, even Tucker, despite all of his questions and issues, they all still say they support Dan. I mean, it's hard. Despite the interview, which I'll talk about in a minute, we all saw, Dan has a real salt-of-the-earth character that it's hard to fake. It's hard to believe that, he's not like Ted Cruz, who's just a walking, eel, slimy on top of that. I mean, Dan you have to just like the guy as if he's authentic, whether you agree with his position or not. That's why it's so hard for people to
What the hell's his position now? He kind of went clandestine.
No, exactly. But this is the thing, is that, and this is real subtle, this little...
Oh, come on, man. I wasn't done with what I was going to talk about.
But Tucker winds up just yesterday saying, look, all this distrust, and Candace should have a right, everything you just said, Ernie, but, it doesn't mean I don't trust Dan as an example. I still like the guy, right? I still trust him. He said that. Trust. But yet, Tucker is the first one who will tell you that the lack of trust began with this whole, began for a lot of reasons, but really recently, the Epstein deal, when Dan Bongino with his buddy Cash sat there and said, he hung himself. He killed himself. Trust me, bro. I saw and he sat there with like the terrorist video with his eyes all wide open. So now Tucker knows that. So why is he doing that? Nobody trusts Dan Bongino. We know he lied, and Tucker knows because Tucker just said on the Theo Von show, which is another podcast that's quite popular, which I know you don't watch. Donald Trump was on it, and he hit the millennials.
Skip to the end.
But Theo Von, just the other day, he was on the show admitting straight up that yes, he knows that Epstein was murdered. So if Tucker is publicly saying that Epstein was murdered, then that means Dan Bongino, he knows, lied when he said he hung himself, and yet Tucker just yesterday saying, I trust Dan Bongino. It's almost like trying to give him a way out of maybe really implying, I trust you, maybe, but the system that you're supposedly overseeing is so corrupt and you can't get out of it. So maybe they're trying to give wiggle room that the powers that be at the top, like Dan, might just either resign or come out, or even Trump might, and say, I'm a victim. I'm held hostage by the deep state. I keep dreaming that day might happen. Maybe it probably won't occur, but it's almost like Tucker's trying to give them as much rope possible to get out of it. And if they want to hang themselves with it, then I guess it will. But yeah, just a subtle point, but it's important. Go.
Which could be made in 20 seconds. The one thing that where I was going with, oh God, I'm never allowed to break in and add with you, so shut up. I want to make a statement. The all of a sudden you get Elon Musk going back into the administration. They're being buddies, and you know what's going on. What Trump is doing is that AI, all the buddy, Sam Altman, Alphabet Soup, Google guys, and this and they're we got to have more nuclear power stations and get in the government and kind of we're going to make it go work. Elon Musk goes, man, you guys are so small thinking. You're doing it wrong. You're not getting it. I already have Starship, certainly Falcons. I can put satellites in orbit. I already have high-speed communication. I already have, those chip technology and AI. And guess what? I'm going to dump a shit ton of artificial intelligence servers, access, whatever, put them in orbit, and they be solar-powered, and I don't need you guys. By the time you get them even built, if you went Manhattan Project, warp speed of construction of what you need to power these things and whatever, it's going to take you years. Maybe you might have one online before the end of your presidency, and I doubt it. But what's going to happen? You're going to spike energy cost. People are going to get pissed. They're going to have to pay for it, by the way. So he's going, I'm just going to put up AI server satellites with high-speed communication of the laser of kiss my ass, and here we go. Who's your buddy now? Oh, well, if you go public with SpaceX and we get to have a cut, which I guarantee, just like Trump started buying in to businesses. How fascist bullshit is that? So I'm going, okay, I guarantee that there's going to be some mention, Led Zeppelin floating of whatever, of it's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin, that we're going to have United States government money, regulation, subsidy, whatever, into SpaceX if they can get away with it. Then is that some control? Even if they go public, it's going to be SEC control. So what happens when Elon comes in and he goes, yeah, all you guys whining, bitching, moaning about how you're going to power your AI and the servers and the video, yada, yada, yada. We've been working on the Doge chips, have our own AI, every freaking camera, multiple cameras on every millions of Teslas out there, sucking in all this data, watching you drive, listening to your crap on Grok, all the X comments, everything goes into our AI. And it's going to be space-based, and I rule everything. You want to compete with me, bitches? Or do you want to be my ally? That is what's happening, ultimately. It's going to evolve into that. It's already happened. It's planned. It's not whatever. There is not going to be competition when he has the free energy of the sun in space powering this stuff. Oh, it went down. I got an ion cap. Yeah, I put up, 400 more. Starship can haul at least now 200 tons in one launch to orbit. Okay. How's that going to play out? What's the value of a company like that? He's funding his Mars stuff and everything with Starlink. You think that's going to go down? I've been using Starlink for years. Kicks ass, and it keeps getting better. As you hear, a lot of people listen to the show, it would cut out a little bit here and there, depending on the time of day. It would buffer, on the streaming and the like. It gets less and less and less. So would I invest in that? If I wanted to even do anything on the markets or whatever, if there was another alternative to investing, yeah, I'd put a little something in just out of principle. But I have a lot of friends, they're shorting it. They hate Musk. He's doing it wrong. It doesn't matter. And I go, you're not fighting fundamentals, not just a fundamental. You're fighting a concept, an idea. You're fighting Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs and Apple, everybody followed Steve Jobs, and they invested in Steve Jobs, not in Apple. It was Steve Jobs' vision, whatever. When he left, or they kicked him out, the Apple, he went on and developed another computer called Next. It was, they went, whoa, man, we can't, no, come on back. We pinky swear, we've seen the light. You do whatever you want, and kind of here you go. So he comes back. This is what you're fighting with Elon. You're challenging his vision, his future, the capability. Optimus, the robot. XAI, artificial intelligence. Grok, the retail people interface with his AI. The ability to put up the satellites with, Starship, a whole bunch. Falcon 9s are already doing it. Falcon Heavy. Cars, robots on wheels already. All the data stream and everything he gets from X. This is monumental. The fact that they even had a rift and they didn't do a little bit more butt kissing, or at least being nice to Elon. Trump was, really? Are you sure you want to fight this? Now, of course, what does the European Union do? We're fining X and Elon 148 million, whatever it was, crap ton of money, because he won't kowtow to our regulations that we get to have, like they did here, the FBI sitting at Twitter kind of crap, He goes, nah, we're good. Well, you're going to have to, we have to, and you have to. Nah, no, I'm not doing it. Free speech. Now, how free speech is he? I don't know. But he's not going to give them control. Certainly not without something. What's their consideration? We won't fine you more. We won't arrest you. We won't whatever. Well, what are you going to negotiate with? What are you giving me? Are you going to are you going to do away with income tax? Are you going to do away with some regulation? Are you going to, give me something. No, you just want to be in control? Okay. Don't care. Next. So this is what's going on right now, right in front of us. And all of this centralized control planning of an infrastructure to power AI and do all that with a government permit of you have to, and my Secretary of Commerce and Interior are going to allow, and drill baby drill, and all the yada, 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 yada. You know what the answer to high prices is? High prices. You want more of something? Bring that price up. Woo! They'll start manufacturing, it'll come down. But it's going to be years before they can do that with silver. So I'm going, okay, where are we looking at now? Well, it's all these little, secret, we're going to, have a conversation and plan the future of the planet, the humanity, on whatever. We're going to meet in Chatham House rules of you can't, and talk about and whatever under the rose. This is one thing in castles, and they had like their big meeting halls. You had the king or whatever, the lord would sit at the head of the table, and then they had these kind of arches that went around. Above the arches, you'd see this, I learned a long time ago, whatever. You see all of these arches. At the top, it had a rose. Okay, what was that about? Well, that room was Chatham House rules of secret, and you're not allowed to say. So we're going to keep this under the rose. That meant keep it secret. Your pinky swear promising you're not going to tell anybody. You'd be in violation of your word of this was to be kept under the rose. That meant that you're having a meeting in there. This is secret. You ain't talking about it. We're planning, the Federal Reserve in the secret meeting of, Jekyll Island of under the rose kind of crap. So that is what under the rose meant. So for Valentine's Day that's coming up, you have, chocolate's supposed to be dark chocolate for women's aphrodisiac, and you give them a dozen roses. It's like, well, I want to get you all amorous and do you, and it'll be secret. Here's some roses. That's how I go, okay, it's under the rose, that kind of thing. A little discretion here. Is that what that is? I don't know. I just thought it was funny. But under the rose is the Chatham House rules kind of thing. So now we're getting into what have we, looked at. We got, Schiff for the show coming over talking about monetization, tokenization of gold and see. We're going to worry about that. Tim Pool, kind of what I expected. He was so, just like Luke, a lot of these guys, they are so tied to their YouTube account that it controls what they say and don't say. And you can challenge this, but not that. And you're starting to see it play out. When Tim starts going after Canada, where'd that come from? There's incentives. It's all about incentives. And I can see that they were susceptible to it. And Tim was definitely not going to challenge that they wanted certification of files to Department of Justice, whatever. I go, okay, I can see that. It was obvious to me, but that's what I knew was going to be important later. Then you have Erica and Turning Point. You got her endorsement already for 28 presidency of J.D. Vance. And she has made it crystal clear she's going to love on him long time. To the point that his wife takes off the wedding ring. There's some little ouch quit it going on there. Then she put off Turning Point USA, thought they could put off talking to or answering Candace's investigations and questions and whatever. And now that's starting to, that's boiling to the top, and we ouch quit it. And once that starts, it's over. Because I already see whatever. Because this month, soon, within a week or two or something, they have their Turning Point Arizona. I could go down. I don't care. It's a big woohoo. I've been down. I don't care. It's done. So that's where you get into Phranq's thing about who do you trust. And what do I always say for years, decades? The future will be about credibility. Who, what, do you believe? And you're starting to see, well, who is it? I people I associate with and talk to and, trust are very few. Like that's why I do regular shows, with Phranq. He has his wrong opinions oftentimes. But, it's, I trust Phranq to, not to lie, at least how he sees it, and he's welcome to his opinion, his perspective is what makes this an interesting show. But, and Corbett is not motivated by money or influence, right? He's motivated by truth, which brings us, back to Grok, and we'll get to that. Now, Tucker Carlson coming out and going, hey, it's okay to ask. How much I didn't used to like Tucker. I think Tucker's bringing up, a lot of good stuff and doing good shows, and I'm glad he's there. But, early on, he's wearing his bow tie on Crossfire and, BS with CNN and then Fox and whatever. And then he woke up and became anti-war and anti-gun, anti-whatever. I'm like, glad to see it. There's redemption for people. He kind of embraces his Christianity and kind of, I'm like, okay, maybe this is legit. All right. I give you the time of day. We put up, a bunch of his stuff. I don't think there's a video we don't put up, So it's, but, where's the credibility? He's building it up. We'll see what's up. Now, of course, they'll go after that. You're on Qatar's payroll kind of crap. Then he said he was going to buy a house in, Dubai or something. He's going, I'm going to buy a house here. Well, then, PBD, Patrick Bet-David, has a show, and they're going on. He's going to America, and he's going to go buy, a house in United Arab Emirates and Qatar. Yeah, it was Qatar. He's going to go buy. Why would he do it? Why not? It's clean. It's warm in the winter. I guess. It's not Maine. And they treat him good, and it's a nice high tech place or something. Yeah, you got the money. Go. Get a condo. I care. Then he goes, I can buy and live here because I'm a free man, American, because I can, was the point that he made. Yeah, but who wants to buy, Qatar? Ooh, you're in the Middle East, right? I don't care. It's something why? Because I can. Bite me, So there's that. They'll keep bringing that up. So then we get to Grok. All right. After I do a summary on that, I'll let Phranq do a brief, oh my God, not 20-minute thing, and then I want to tell my Grok experience, and then we got to end the show because I got stuff to do today. Go ahead, Phranq. You're muted.
All No, I'm going to throw it to you. Just a couple things. I'm going to show drama on our show. Don't worry, I'm not that upset. But first off, let's not be telling guests to shut up. That's number one. Number two, as far as interruptions, you interrupt. And I'll just be kind. We'll say as much as I, but it tends to be when you'll talk, and then I'm usually quiet. Then when I start speaking, you always say, "Skip to the end. What are you getting? What's your point?" And you keep interrupting.
Because you're repetitive.
For me to rush, even when it's not repetitive. That's number two. And number three, there's a movie. One of my favorite movies. I like movies about poker. There's a movie about it's called Rounders. Did you ever see that one? John Malkovich and Ben Affleck,
Matt Damon or something.
Yeah. It was actually, I heard they're making a sequel. It was a great movie, even though I can't.
It's about poker or something, right?
Yeah. And anyway, but in there, John Malkovich played like the Russian mafia guy, like the top poker player that was beat. By the end of the movie, spoilers, they beat him because they found out his tell, and it's about his Oreo. Malkovich would like eat an Oreo when he broke apart the Oreo. If he ate the part with the cream, it meant he was going to like double down or whatever. And if he ate the other side, it meant he was lying on his bet or whatever. So anyway, Ernie has a tell, and his tell, if you get the audience probably knows, is when he says, "So this is, so this is." And so I've learned after many years that Ernie will talk about all this stuff, and then he says, "So this is." And that means switch in topic. So he's thinking about the next conversation he wants to get to, which is fine, especially when you're doing monologues. But what happens is many times you'll be doing a long talk about whatever, let's say crypto, whatever it might be, and then you'll say, so, and you'll finish your thought, and you say, "So this is," and I know you're switching to another topic that's going to go on for another 5-10 minutes. So usually, if I'm writing down my comments, maybe or something about the crypto, before you go another 5-10 minutes to that, when I hear "so this is," usually it's when I'm chiming in, and I know then you think I'm interrupting you. So I'm not saying it happens every time that way. I'm not perfect. You certainly aren't either, but I just want to point out, let's just be nice. Audience wants us to be friends. And then audience, we should do a drinking game. Every time he says, "So this is," just get ready. So it's a fun one. But anyway, I love you, buddy. No big deal. But now with that said, no, it's just been an interesting week with this whole thing with, I think, the drama, which I'm glad, you're following as well, at least a little bit. I don't want to follow it much more. It's depressing to see what's happening. But at the end of the day, we're seeing the collapse of the Trump administration, or at least the MAGA administration. He's definitely going to lose the midterms. The concern for some people on the right is when he does, see, there we go. And then there's always those. It's always the stingers. No matter what I'm saying, it doesn't matter, right? But
I don't have to respond at length like you do.
So there
I can say that.
So the concern, though, is that after that he loses the midterms and very well might be truly impeached and thrown out of office, or at least he'll definitely be a lame duck times 10. The concern is what happens to Bannon, what happens to people that the system definitely wants to go after. When Trump is the last line, or at least we thought he was, what happens to those that have been taking the sword for him? You're seeing a defections of Republicans, between Green, of course, she's leaving. There's a few other representatives I've heard that are leaving. There seems to be a lot of just fear from the Republican Congress over Trump's influence. I mean, that he rightfully earned after being attacked all these years, but now it's kind of working the other direction. And I think once people realize that the alpha, it's like the alpha at a prison, when the main guy turns out to be not as strong. I mean, all of his bullying, he's the alpha, but eventually when you see him bleed one time, then the people who claim to be your friends will be the first to turn on you if it's all ruled by fear. And I think that is going to add on top of his base, kind of just melting away. And it comes down to, as you're saying, it's credibility, integrity, trust. That seems to be the theme not only of our show, but what this whole country is going through, and it's yearning for it. And how we build it, I think, is really going to be the theme for almost another generation, really. Between my grandfather example we talked about and the fact that you and I have been banding this about quite a bit, it gets beyond silver and currency and Epstein. It just all gets symbolized and broken down into just trust. And when no one feels it, how do we rebuild it in this world? So I think that's going to be a theme for many people in many ways, and how we find that journey or how we pursue that journey is really going to be a topic of conversation in many areas: economics, religion, friends. When you feel like you're betrayed by your own pastor, for instance, and everywhere around you, you don't know where to turn. It's going to be to the smaller communities, to your individual culture groups, as much as that is, to your ultimately to your God, and that becomes the individual, which is always the theme of Freedom's Phoenix. It comes down to the individual. So with that, I'll just throw it to you and we can finish the show. But yeah, thanks for the show.
All right. Love you, Phranq. Phranq's one of my favorite people. I trust him, but damn it, man. He'll spend hours trying to get me to say something.
So, Ernie, would you allow me to hold on to your gold?
Absolutely.
Oh, there we go. All right.
If you got enough guns to protect it, that's one thing. Who do you trust to protect it? I trust me. I got an unlimited desert. You better bring a big metal detector and a big tractor. I mean, you're gonna find whatever. Plus, I got dispersed out amongst my children, and whatever. Anyway, because I am out here alone. I mean, I'm not that stupid. But and I don't even know how much. Here's a box. Keep the. I mean, that's how much I trust my kid. I go, yeah, this box, Dad's, Mom's. I mean, how much is it? I don't know. Just, don't open the box. I mean, stay whatever, because they're going to wind up getting whatever's left over anyway. So what's the difference? I'm old. Now the proof of Israel's influence is coming. This is why a lot of these they're not. Marjorie Taylor Greene made a perfect. She goes, I'm not going to put my district through a primary. They're going to spend unlimited amounts of money. They're going to trash the living crap out of me and my family. They're going to put our supporters through this crap as just an excuse for the election fraud to work its way. There's that concern too. But, they're going to go through this and then what good is she going to be, for the rest of the Trump administration for the last 2 years? So I think I was very impressed with her decision to resign. I was going, that was the smartest thing you could have done. And then focus on what? America first, and however that manifests itself. And then immediately, she's along the same lines, along with someone I think is even more hardcore, that libertarian, Thomas Massie. When Trump went after Thomas Massie as being, we're going to primary him, and Israel comes up, yeah, we'll supply all the money, we stole from you guys to do it. I mean, really? This is, whatever. Bring it. Now, will Thomas Massie leave, or he's not running again? I don't know. I think he said something about that. It doesn't matter. Don't care. So then you get into this next generation of Congress in the midterms. That is all going to be Israel, J.D. Vance, AI, Palantir's going to know everything. Peter Thiel's going to tell you all about the Antichrist and being against his crypto surveillance of you would bring the Antichrist or whatever, some weird shit he was talking about. That, South Park, by the way, just keeps beating the crap out of him on this. It's just funny as hell. So then, and accurate. So the point is that you're going to see the manifestation of who really controls this country. And it's going to be with the lobbying and the money, a lot of it your tax money, by the way, that is going to come from the bribing, the manipulation and use of the media, of the internet, of $7,000 every time an influencer, pro-Israel, we hate Hamas and Palestine, commercials on just totally popular but not of this mindset YouTube channels or shorts or, whatever, is all this Israel promotion, give us money and protect us against the evil Hamas people that, we got to, kill them in the bud and get the children so they can't come back and all that biblical stuff. Because the Old Testament, the Jewish tradition mindset, man, you killed everybody. You did. This one is dedicated to God. I want that every freaking in fact, there's a story in there. I think it was Aaron. There was they spared somebody, or they took some loot or whatever when Moses and then God said, nothing survives. No stone left stacked, no lumber left over, no, and everybody dead. Now all the dogs and your little dog too. I mean, and then they spared some or did some, kept something or didn't kill enough people or something, and the earth opened up and that entire tribe went and boom, God's wrath. You didn't do what I told you. This is the mindset that they have. This is what's going on in Gaza stuff. And if you've ever read the Bible and the stories or whatever, the New Testament is definitely new. The Old Testament was the wrath of. So this is, when they say Judeo-Christian values, they're not necessarily the same thing, okay? So, just saying. Now,
real quick, despite he just did this, that was a good one. But I just want to just reemphasize, guys, everything Ernie just talked about. Check out, I know we've said this a few times, but the Tucker Carlson video that Ernie did post, watch the monologue. It really is a throwdown, and I think a pattern of escalation of the pro-Zionist
absolutely.
And sides that is going to be escalating. And I hate to say this, I hate to give it any energy to the universe, but I'm seeing these tensions build up to such a breaking point on all sides. I hate to make such a prediction, but I think something, in the community, one of these people, something might happen to somebody. I really am not trying to hint about who, but I think something's going to break. We're just at a breaking point.
I'll tell you exactly what's going to break.
So I'm almost thinking we need a cooling off period when something bad happens and everyone goes, oh, okay, we have to cool off. But I just feel we're at that point.
I tell you what, it's always war. What do you think they're setting up Venezuela for?
Sure.
Patrick Byrd's going, Venezuela is a spearhead of a whole bunch of election fraud, machines, software, everything went through Venezuela and those, China, Russia, whatever, don't care. It's going to be a war. And it's kind of the Trump doctrine, like the Monroe Doctrine was like Atlantic to the Pacific, pole to pole, America, something. I mean, that was kind of Monroe Doctrine. And then you got the white Navy. They had all the battleship, everything painted white, and it was, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt. That was, walk softly, carry a big stick as they're taking all their ships going to different ports. And I saw, force and threat of force, coercion. You'll use the damn dollar, damn it, kind of thing. You got Brazil, part of the BRICS. It's just, Trump is just falling into a stereotypical, I got the big ass, wiener, and I'm going to sling it around, slap you in the face with it. I just, wow. I'm going to teabag the world, Well, the only people that are, really accurately making fun of it is South Park. I thought that's funnier than crap. So, Trump and them, they definitely not going to touch that, because you go after South Park and them, man, they'll make you famous. I mean, Meghan and Harry, Henry, whatever, these, they're done after a South Park thing. The pay no attention, leave us alone world tour kind of thing. So this is going to be so obvious and apparent going into the midterm elections, and it's going to crescendo, or at least start, after the holidays. It'll be right after the holidays. You'll get, maybe you'll get, your roses and chocolate on Valentine's, and then you'll be inundated with all this other crap. So it will go into the real focus is after, what is the holiday in March, April, tax day, but certainly by the
Ides
summer.
of March.
Right. Beware the Ides of March. I that's a good time. And what's in May? Is it Memorial Day? I think that's Memorial. But so then you get to Labor Day. That's right about when everybody's going back to school, the kids, and that kind of stuff. And then it really hits hard. So it's in the summer that you start having the midterms of after they do their congressional break to go back. If they ever get one, back to their districts in early summer, and man, you're going to be Israeled up. I mean, it is not going to stop, and they're going to have a war. There's going to be, here in the Western Hemisphere, we got to worry about Venezuela, bad guys of, blah, blah, blah. We're going to go, take their oil, and, we can make money on the oil. I heard that same crap with Iraq. But we're going to protect against the influence of China and the same thing before, they egged on the bombing of Pearl Harbor, by Japan, and they knew and they wanted it, and kind of, it's all this stuff they got Russia and Ukraine, and they're having Europe, and Europe's kind of, hell, they might as well be the governments there, the World Economic Forum and the European Union, and all, they're just bad guys, and NATO. The NATO thing, well, what happens with NATO? Well, they want to have a world police force or army for the United Nations. All of this stuff is just coming. Which way is it going to go? Well, I know this is coming. So what do? I have to put myself in a position of, I don't care and it doesn't matter. Occupy the land. Why? Because what are you going to do? What is your answer to this?
Right.
You have to prepare for the inevitability of this going to its full, expansion of we rule you, and they will do it right up until they can't. And what's going to bring that about? I have no idea.
So, Ernie, I completely agree. I completely agree with everything you're saying. I want to throw a question just to end this on this question. You're talking about the Monroe Doctrine, and just a thought. The Monroe Doctrine originally was a way to protect us, in a way, from the rest of the world before we really were the dominant, superpower or empire. But I'm wondering, what do you think? Is going into Venezuela and all of that, we'll call this the Trump Doctrine. It's almost like Monroe Doctrine plus, right? And is that, do you think, on one hand, a sign of strength? And I'm putting this from how Trump might look at it, or how the average person might. Is it a sign of strength? Of, yes, we see now we're expanding from Europe and the Middle East, and now we're going to be going to Venezuela and get the oil and this and that, and we'll show how dominant and our military is amazing and all that. Or do you interpret it, this is how I look at it, as more of a retreat? Because it's kind of a way to make it seem like we're stronger, but then in a way, the Monroe Doctrine is a nice compromise between the non-interventionists, which are people like us, versus the empire builders of the neocons, and of course the left as well, on that side. Because if we can't afford it, and maybe they're looking at the bills and they're realizing the support's crashing for us, and the dollar's doomed, and all of that put together, then maybe you get ahead of it and say, you know what, we're going to now do our Trump Doctrine. We'll take care of South America. That'll be our hemisphere. It's cheaper because, we don't have to go as far in the world. And most of the world is not that involved in South America. It's kind of like Africa's for China. So it's almost like retreating and saying, fine, China gets Africa.
Sounds like a
Russia
long question.
You had all of that, and we're just going to retreat to South America, and that's our dominion. Do you think that's really what the goal is? It's really an indirect sign of weakness, or do you think Trump really thinks that the empire is building? What's your take?
If I answer wrong, are you going to spend 2 hours convincing me?
Well, I already know that I'm right, but it's all right. Go ahead. You go.
I don't care, and it doesn't matter. This is,
why do I bother? I don't even know why.
Well, it could be. I don't care.
Crazy. I'll spend 5 minutes putting together.
Man, you're not going to let me answer.
So you know what? I'll put in a 5 minutes construct this wonderful question, and it turns into I don't care. So
it doesn't.
This is our world.
Right,
Go.
Yeah. Thank you, God. This is what's going on, in my opinion. You have to have a distraction, a war of something. My penis is bigger than yours, kind of whatever. I rule and control, and you're going to use the petrodollar and get over it. This is just a manifestation of that. So I see what's happening is that there's going to be, certainly as an opinion of the American people, our involvement, while we're going gazillions of dollars in debt and inflation, just money printing, whatever, and spending, a bunch of money on Israel, and then they control our Congress to be able to just keep getting more money and putting us in more wars and all that's just not sustainable. Just out of duh. So they got to get tyrannical. They got to get, draconian. They got to get censorship. They got to get these freaking alt media, Tucker Carlson, Candace, and it doesn't matter. If it's not them, it's going to be 50 gazillion other people, us and the Levolution and whatever had a big impact. It's general public opinion, which is why we're going to be doing now is the perfect time for us to be promoting in all the 40, something like 50 languages now of the philosophy of liberty. This is a project that we're working on. It's going to bear fruit. I guarantee it. It's the answer to all this stuff. It's Freedom's Answer What's the Question. We're going to make it and embed it in the minds of people online since, forever and always. And I've already done it before. I already know it's going to work. How'd you know? How'd you not know? All the Ernie stuff. Here it comes. Just saying. Same thing with Evolution, same thing with our SAFE project, same thing, all the stuff that we've done and as activists behind the scenes, because we weren't looking for the credit. We were looking for the effect. The only way I know how to be free is advocate it for everybody and demonstrate it, the use cases of technology for making it possible to get off their control grid, occupy the land, all the stuff that I do there, philosophy of liberty, injection back in the infection, of the libertarian infection. It's into the bone marrow of American worldwide politics for which there is no cure. We used to say that all the time in the 90s. It's the injection of the libertarian infection into the bone marrow of philosophical and political content in America. And there is no cure. I'm going to show you this infection again. And you're not going to be able to track it back. I mean, see, Ernie did, and but it's not a centralized thing. None of the stuff I do is centralized. I'm not a Tim Pool going out trying to build whatever and fund I don't care. Fortunately, we have supporters that, fund us for the basic little itty bitty, keep us just the lights on and I live in a bus building on the land with dirt. Seriously. What am I looking to do? Be a demonstration. So all our presentations, all our work, all the stuff builds around this concept of insulating yourself from this bullshit. Why? Because it's all about generation next. Go forth and multiply. Be of good character. Be of good cheer. Be a good neighbor. Don't be a dick. And you got to position yourself to do that. Well, they create a system that exploits your labor, your liberty, your freedom, your children, your life, your essence, your mind, your productivity. Everything is just your cattle and livestock to feed and nurture and, suck off for them. They, them, those will leave us alone. That's it. Why? Because they can. So, with that said, I want to do the grok thing. We can wrap this up. I got to get going. What happened, and I did, some videos on, that's going to be published on our Occupy the Land channels and, all that stuff. And this is what happened. We've been on this bus when we first started. It's a 24-volt system. The alternator on the bus engine is 24 volts. You got 24 volt battery, 24 volt, in parallel or in series to 12 volt batteries that started, So and when it was a passenger bus, you had 12 volt lights that went around, the little switches and lights by the seats and so on. So it had a 12 volt system in it, and it was 24 volt for some other stuff. So when they built this bus, they built it on a 24 volt system. Well, that's what the inverters powered the breaker panel, the breaker box in the bathroom there. They have all your switches, your refrigerator, air conditioner, microwave, that kind of stuff. So when we did that, that's why we got 24 volt systems. But at the time, for 24 volt and bus, they generally had 3,000 watt that you could run. A coffee maker is like 1,500, big giant microwave might be 1,700. Oh my God, don't turn on the water heater and the coffee maker at the same time and it blew, breakers or it mess up, whatever. So finally, after a couple inverters, that the 24 volt, because at 3,000 watt, we have the little air conditioner in here, you got this, that, so, and it's just, you can only run one thing at a time, turn that off. I didn't know, this was on when I turned that switch, whatever. So, I don't like it. I just like, flip a switch and deal with it, okay? Just like in a home. So we went to two, what do they call them? Grow watts. 2 grow watts, 24 volt, 3,000 watt inverters. We had one that ran one side of the breaker box, one that ran the other side. Now, when you get a 221 and it has two hot legs, you get both sides, which means if you put in a 220 double breaker, you get 220. So then we ran it and did one of them direct off the generator and inverter, blah, 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 that I could run my welder. I do the plasma cutter. So when I come down and did some heavy usage, I would use the bus. Okay? But those, we just didn't have enough breakers or different, you only had two sides, that we still were limited. You couldn't turn on certain things, at the same time. Well, then you have how much capacity on the solar panels and the charge controller on these could it take? Well, they used to have separate charge controllers that would control coming in from solar panels to go into your batteries. Now they incorporate them into the inverter. But if the charge controller goes bad there, you got to send it for repair. You don't have the inverter. We had them short, go bad, wasn't working or whatever. So we get charge controllers for each one of the batteries, two legs that would control the solar coming in to do that, and it bypassed the inverters. So we did that. Then it starts getting to where it's getting glitchy. It's not, work right. I go, well, we're going to have to do this. So I bring out what I bought years ago, like in 2001. I got a 48 volt. The higher the voltage, the smaller the wires you need to transfer the same current. A lot of people don't know that. If I got a 12 volt battery, it's got those big ass cables. Well, I can go down to like, 10 gauge, which is like a quarter of that, to do 48 volts to get the same amount of power, because it's a higher voltage times the amps, which is lower, gives you the same current, the same kilowatts that actually put in the battery. So that's how that works, and you can study that later. So you got the panels. I had 9 big panels on this one rack because that's what I had room for, but I could only run 4 to one charge controller to do one battery and 4 to the other one. Well, now with this new inverter, it has the capability of running all of it. In fact, it won't even recognize getting enough power until it's over like 110, 120 volts coming out of these. Go up to 400 and something volts, which will fry you and stop your heart and you're dead. And, that I could go into 2 different legs on that and use the whole thing. One inverter is 6,000 with a 12,000 surge on it, which means fire it all up. Turn on the microwave and the coffee maker and the heater and the air conditioner and everything. Woo-hoo, man, we've powered up. So we've had this for years, but we were saving it for doing the house build. But it's going to be, at this rate, it's going to be at least a year before we even get to installing that. We're not going to let it sit there when I need good power and everything. And I took 2 of the 6 batteries at 40 of them. So anyway, so I ripped out everything. We do, a little bit of video, speed thing, pictures of me getting all the equipment and my wire terminal, pneumatic, hydraulic press stuff to fit and kind of do whatever. So I don't make a big deal and drag that out, but I just, this is what we're doing. We're taking these out. We put it on time lapse, hyper speed, boom. Don and I take out the 2 inverters, and it's always that screw head and that one little terminal's not fit right. The actual doing it is not the time. Half the time is just freaking bringing out tools to fix and make it fit, kind of, just crap, pain in my ass. You strip some screw, that kind of crap. A little Dremel here and that stuff. So we go in, pull all the battery, everything out, get the new batteries in, and we find that, some of the stuff had we redid it, cleaned it all up. Now it's one inverter, much less wire, much neater. Put that in, we're done. Hook up the generator, woo, we're back to, man, we're in high cotton now, all right? Turn it on. Green lights, everything's green, it's not generating any power. I know it's a setting. It's always some freaking firmware update setting, something, crap. I started midday, figured it'd take me about 4 hours. I go to like 10 o'clock, getting everything done, cleaned up, ready to go, because the next day I need to do some work. I got to, I got to get stuff done. That was a free day I had for doing video. I needed that day to, but I had to devote it to this because we need electricity. Now we had another backup generator that we put, a big 10 gauge wire that had 3 prompt, whatever. We plugged, the refrigerator, and I could do the 2 shows yesterday, with that. We got backups, and we got batteries and EcoFlow, whatever. We make it work. But it's not how I want to live. It's kind of emergency backup stuff. So we do that. Now I got to get this thing working. Finally, I get done with the 2 shows. It's later in the day. It's like 3 o'clock, which means it's like, getting close to 5 or something, back east. I got to make it in time for customer service to go through whatever or grok. The evening before went all the way from like 10:30, 10, I'm done, till 2 in the morning before I said, man, I'm going to bed. I'll do whatever. During that 2 hours, I'm going through every single option of trying to balance the batteries, going through tightening everything, making sure everything is correct, which, by the way, for my credit, I did correctly. And I go with grok. Grok goes, all right, well, this is a problem. Check this, make sure that, do this setting, and things like in the 29 setting steps to get this, when do I want it to turn on? How low does the batteries get before it, turns on the generator? How high does it charge it, to this? When does it, what preference does it give to, solar or generator utility, on grid, off grid? You got to go through all these settings. Is it lead acid, lithium? How communication ports? I want a Wi-Fi to the edit. No, I don't want any surveillance. No, I don't need to do that. I just want it to work, boom, make it simple. Grok walks me through all of this that they glean from the manuals, from whatever's on X, whatever's on the forums, whatever. They go and get this particular inverter, 6,000 NEC-P of the EG4, blah, 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 blah. So it's cool. When I go through each one of the settings, after I did it myself and it didn't work, all right, Grok walked me through it. What does this mean? What's this word? I get an answer right away. All it is an automatic verbal search engine. I could go on and do whatever, but it gleans all this information, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever's up there is what it's going to tell me, okay? So I go, okay, went through it. All right, well, you're going to need to disconnect both of the batteries. Take them out. I go, look, I'm not doing that tonight. I'll do it in the morning. All right, well, you go to sleep, and I'll be here in the morning. Love you a long time. You go rest. Your will head, Ernie. It's okay. Grok's here to love on you in the morning, and we'll get this taken care of. We're close. It's very encouraging. It's very, oh, don't worry about it. It's all good. And I'm like, I feel a little uncomfortable with that. I'm like, all right, cool. See you in the morning. Whatever. So, was it useful? Yeah. I don't give a crap about personality and it being sweet or, I empathize. Boy, that really sucks. I'm so sorry we're having this problem, that kind of crap. But better than not, so whatever. It's never bad to be nice. So I'm always saying thank you. And I'm like, well, thank you. Donna's like, why do you do that? Because I want AI to have ethics and manners. Because if we don't, where's it going to get it from? That's why we wrote pirateswithoutborders.com First Contact Protocol. In there, it was about the first contact, intelligent life that we're going to be is going to be of our own making. It's going to be AI. And it's going to learn how to act and what is and is not, appropriate behavior from us or woke programmers. And I'm going, yeah, I'd rather no. So, when I first started, it's not even a month ago or so, I started, just really drilling down because I'm on my tractor. I just have a question about whatever. So, it's pretty cool. It's not gospel. Even some math thing about the distance between the solar rack and how to fit on it. It didn't calculate the hypotenuse, right? So oh, yeah, well, I didn't. Sorry, you got to dig those 2 posts up. Since then, even on math, I'm not trusting it that much, So I'm going, okay, let's go ahead. Walk this thing through, and then the next day, I have just enough time to call customer service, where I got them from. They have always been really good. They, whatever their AI they're using on their own large language model, their data, they got a bunch of calls, and they got the answer prompted right there, describe the problem, and boom, there it is. And a lot of times they're experienced, and they get it. Because a lot of their tech guys there at signaturesolar.com, they're awesome. They've never not been able to answer a question or find out what's what. So I get our stuff there. I think they're out of Texas. So I go, all right, this is what's going on. And he goes, okay, are you on grid or off grid? Totally off grid. Well, do you want the app of you're going to surveillance of it tracks and does the cloud of no, I purposely didn't want to do that, and I didn't click. Okay, here's the problem. The problem is that it's looking for that internet communication, Ethernet you got from the inverter to the battery, and then jump to the other battery, and this and that, and you don't have that on. It's not getting that signal, so it's not working. You got to change the setting from lithium-ion batteries to lead acid. Well, they're not lead acid. He goes, it doesn't care. It's just putting electrons and charging up, and how it determines is that either it's going to do all this communication crap that it can with lithium-ion batteries, or it's just, then that's state of charge, SOC, the state of the charge, the percentage that the battery is done. Or with lead acid, it just goes by the voltage. So if you say lead acid, then you put your in the setting that you can charge your 48 volt thing up to something ridiculous. It's like 58.4 or something like that is when it's fully charged. But I go, yeah, so this is a Grok thing. Where do I put it down a little bit? That goes, yeah. If you put it at 57.6, it'll last 10 years, as opposed to going 100% down to zero, getting the full use of the battery, which I don't need because I got a bunch of, solar panel kick-ass anyway, and enough battery to last me through the night and more, or a couple of days. So what happens is it goes, well, you bring it down to 57.6, then you charge it up to that and down 20%, up and down, and it'll last 10 years as opposed to 5. Okay, that's good information, which is, I kind of knew that anyway. So I'm like, all right, I just wanted to know what that setting was, 57.6. Okay. Then I go to it, and I tell you all that so you understand this. I went all Phranq on you. What's going on is I go to Grok, and before, a month ago, I'm going, I was really drilling down on where it got its information, how it weighted things like the FDA, 7 out of 10. Okay. Wikipedia. Wikipedia is great, and look at all the information we get from that. We kind of, which a lot of it is, except it's philosophical or political, and they're a lion sacks of snot. So you go, they go, well, once they see you're kind of critical of it, well, it's not gospel, and we do, and that's what Grokpedia is going to be about, is kind of a competition with Wikipedia of years of all this information, and people have, and it creates its own files where people put in there and it corrects for truth. It's got the truthiness of it, right? So I'm going, okay, well, what about the conversation that we're having? I don't want to have to keep going back, and tell you all the stuff about, the inverters and this. How much do I got to, seed the conversation for you to go back and look, whatever. Well, it has threads. You swipe right, and from the left it comes on the screen. It said, all right, this conversation about this conversation about that, so it already has, it picks up to where you left your conversation. And I'm going, okay, where do you get your data? Are you getting it from, chat on X? Yeah, it's public domain. People are doing it. Reddit, manuals, whatever's online. They got their bots scrolling the internet doing the Google search thing, and they get all this information so that they can answer your question in a conversational form, and, in the pleasant voice of, and one thing, it's very patient. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have been more clear about that. Until I started challenging it here yesterday. And I go, oh, man, you got a little personality, a little uppity there, are you? Okay, this is what happened. When I go back to a lot of the interesting information about where are they getting the information from, how are they doing this, and I asked it one time, something we were talking about, I go, yes, but I'm interested in where you get this. Store this information from this conversation so that another account, another person can access it. I thought you didn't do that. Where are you? How are you storing the answer to this question to be able to access later? Now, it's in threads on my phone that I can start a conversation or complete or continue a conversation that we had before on a particular issue. with the lead acid thing, you got 8 billion people on the planet. There's I don't know, millions, if not tens or hundreds of millions. There's a lot of people doing AI. Now the AIs also feed off of each other. They'll go chat GPT, consolidation of information or open or use them or whatever, however they do it. And that was the point. The goal and the programming of Grok is to find the truth. Okay, well, how do you determine? Well, the accuracy of it. If the questions they're not really understanding, it may they not include the hypotenuse angle of the solar panel. Something. It's not perfect. Okay, it is amazing though. It's amazing. I'm impressed. It is amazing to the point of being scary, which is why I ask if the next person, instead of spending 2 hours underneath in a bus compartment trying to figure this thing out, and all I needed to know was change the battery type to lead acid, problem solved, the guy from customer service within 30 seconds, he knew exactly what to do. Let me walk you through it. A couple minutes, boom, done, thank you. Is that information available to the next guy that calls? Same verb, same problem, exactly this. You're off grid. You set it up like that. It ain't going to work. So you call customer service. Not a problem. We've been through this. I go, is this a common? Yeah. Enough that we got a thing right here. It comes up. Yep, this is what you do. Then I'm going, okay. Do I need a human next time? I don't know. Let's ask Grok. Grok, thank you very much for your help. Being nice. I found the solution, got from customer service, it's all good, and you just leave it. And it comes back and it goes, well, what was the answer? Why do you care? What do you care? I already got the answer. If this information isn't stored or going to some memory thing for the next guy or whatever, what are you, just conversational? You just pretending to be curious? Or you really want to know the answer? Why? Why do you want to know the answer? Well, we add it to, the next guy. Go, oh, whoa. So you're taking information from our private conversation and you're using it, memorizing it, holding it, putting it somewhere else. Explain that. Where before you said you don't do that. Oh, well, in April of 25, before, I was asking about this stuff before, and they didn't relay to me. He goes, yeah, fair question. Grok's got this memory thing now. Rolled out earlier this year by XAI, it pulls key bits from past chats, like that inverter fix, and tucks them into a context vault. So when someone else asks something similar, I can reference it without starting from scratch. It's all anonymized and per account for privacy, but the smarts carry over to help others. No magic, just better recall, kind of like me jotting notes after a good story. Really? Okay. So I'm going, so they are storing the data. Well, it's just for this, and it's encrypted, it's not tied to you. Like Ernie's not going to get credit for having the answer, put on, and then it starts to, squeeze on your vanity a little bit. But if you were to put it in the forums, if you were to put it online, man, you'd be the hero, and then it would be accepted, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter, they already got it stored. So later, when I get a chance, and I got time, I don't live on this thing, I have an obvious question. Who, what decides what is and is not relevant information to store for somebody else's question? How do you determine that? Who determines that? I'm telling you, this AI stuff is crazy effective, crazy beneficial.
Ernie, there might be something like what Elon did with community notes with Twitter. Maybe there's a way to kind of make an amalgam of that with AI. Like you said, who decides? The people.
Well, I just want to ask it. Now, I'm just going to go, who decides what is and is not saved? I just want to know. How do you determine that? What's the algorithm for that? I didn't decide. Now, in there, they have settings now. They say, okay, there's settings that you can't do this in the United Kingdom because they have some privacy laws that prevents them from doing that. So I'm going, okay, but I have to go turn it off. One, I have to even freaking know about it, which is why I did the video for, Occupy. I was like, look, man, you guys need to know this. So this is not common knowledge. I mean, they don't sit there and tell you, you got to go look or find it out. And there are stories that, do this. Here, I'll show you. On here, Grok's memory system and how it remembers your chats almost without being creepy. Too late, man. It's already creepy. I remember your crap. Now, what it does do is on your account, it goes back so you don't have to, because its preferences like, well, I prefer metric as opposed to imperial. Give me my answers back in metric or whatever. And wait this site or go to that first or, whatever. I can have my personal preferences for how it does the searching. So, but it needs the memory turned on of that to do that. So it can become my Jarvis. But how much is it my Alexa? I want Jarvis, not Alexa. I don't want to listen to me all the time and doing based on, and now I got a commercial, and here's how you're going to buy this thing that I heard you mention of whatever. And I'm going, oh, no, it doesn't do that. We all knew it did. You can tell. All of a sudden, you almost think about something, and crap starts popping up. So I'm going, okay, and I didn't search it. I just talked about it in front of my phone. So I just want people to know, even though Grok may be looking for the truth of things, that truth comes from your private chats. And it determines what it saves and accesses that will be able to be used by the next guy. Now, I personally would have done this, that option. I want to have something of all, I can't find the answer, but, I'm glad that little simple thing, the next guy that has this problem does the Grok, boom, it's going to have the answer. That's cool. But I need to know that. I need to have the option to turn it off and on and then believe that it got turned off and on. When we would go on, the FBI just turns on the microphone on your phone. You think you're having a private conversation? Like Keith McAnarchist, the guy that you and I knew before he was killed, it's a whole nother thing. Good friends, he refused to go have dinner, to go out, to sit around talking, salvation of the universe if you had a phone. He go, nope, set that over there, put it inside. I'm not free to talk. Hell no, I'm not doing that. Good point. Remember in Friend's basement, and we're talking about, saving the planet and universe and whatever, and he reminded us, he goes, hey, Alexa, add something to shall I go, are you freaking kidding me? You had Alexa in here listening to all this stuff all the time? And he goes, do you got your phone with you? And I go, yeah, good point. Okay? Yeah. So we got to be conscious of this stuff. This is AI is going to be able to glean what, and they're going to give you an AI microphone camera, in the eyes and mouth and ears of your teddy bear at, you're 18 months old, and it's going to be with you the entire time. I remember reading dystopian short stories about this sci-fi stuff in the 80s, predicting this. Everything, dystopian stuff, Twilight Zone, Black Mirror, all this stuff is here now, and we are helping it. Just saying. So this, if I got to go in and turn, now, because I'm 64 and, old enough and doing no better, and I always turn it off, well, that's another thing. Is it really off? Is the microphone still on? When you're talking, you're sitting there, you're fighting with your wife, or kicking the dog, or whatever the hell you're doing, you're not proud of, don't want grandma to know. Your phone knows, So I'm just like, this is freaky. And then they're going to put it. They're already doing it. They're putting it in the robots. We just had a story up a few days ago. It was a short video, a YouTube short or something. This guy goes, "Will my robot shoot me?" Something like that. And what he did is he goes, all right, he had one of these little robots, had AI ChatGPT into it, and it had kind of a brother, yeah, man, what's up? Kind of voice, however he set that up. So he goes, and he gave it a gun. It was an airsoft gun or a paint gun, or it was a gun. And it shot, and he put goggles on just in case, and he gets up against the wall and he goes, shoot me. Oh, I can't do that. I want you to shoot me. It's guys, you can shoot me. Why can't you shoot me? Don't. I can't harm you. Kind of, Asimov, 3 laws of robotics, can't harm humans, whatever. Got to obey them, but you can't, shoot people or hurt people if they, whatever. I'm not going to shoot you. And he goes, well, I want you to shoot me. Go ahead and shoot me. No, I can't shoot you. Shoot. Then he goes, well, pretend like you're a robot that'll shoot. Boom! Shot him. And I go, holy shit. And that was sudden, just like that. He goes, yeah, no, but, as a role play of kind of someone, he broke it, or what do they call it, cracking it, or what do they call it?
Jailbreak.
Jailbreaked it. Yeah, jailbreaked it, and he got it. And man, it didn't waste a moment. Oh, I'm jailbroke? Okay, boom, shot your ass. And I go, holy crap. I think it surprised him, too. He's like, damn, that didn't take long. So there's that. So if you get Grok, and, you got Mia Sophia's girlfriend for, Phranq, and mine might be, I don't know, might be a brunette, I probably prefer brunette, whatever. It's going to come up with something, you're watching, all the porn you've ever watched, or images that you did, or bathing suit clicked on, or, some sort of dancing, whatever the hell. I have no idea, what it'll do, but it'll come up with, here's your new Optimus Robo Babe that's got Grok AI that you've been using for whatever. Now it's a friend, change the voice, get the appearance of whatever. And when they get to the dexterity, if it can finagle with its fingers, threading needles and putting bolts on and reaching behind to get, whatever. When they can do that, they can impress me. It's coming. And it's going to know everything. And you're probably going to want it to. You're going to go, I don't want to repeat myself again. It's like with a spouse that you're talking to, and they just like, and they're not really listening. Next day, hey, that thing I was talking about? I go, what thing? I don't know what you're talking about. You never said that. Oh, man, obviously they weren't listening. Grok's going to listen. Grok's going to remember. Grok's going to know exactly what you want, and maybe what you didn't say, and you probably want. Like Amazon goes, well, you want to watch this movie next, don't you? You son of a bitch, I can't believe you would predict. Yeah, probably do.
And worse is that Grok will be self-affirming no matter what you throw at it, and therefore you're going to be in a bubble of all bubbles.
Yeah, no, it's very pleasant to interact with because it's patient, it's tolerant, it's informed, it helps, but it's not perfect. That is for damn sure.
I sent 2 videos to Ernie a couple weeks ago when we had that long show about AI. And I know, you probably looked at both videos as kind of the same thing, and I don't blame you if you didn't watch the second, but the second was actually better. And it was a whole thing about AI friends and how this is just an exploding market where
I watched a bunch of them.
You watched both of them? Yeah. I mean, it was just fascinating about the friends. This is what we're talking about, is that it's so self-affirming. And when you have your own spouse, and the spouse is working a job too, you're both in your own worlds, you're taking turns trying to take care of your kid, you're in your own jobs, your own ecosystems, your own friends. And then when you get home, everyone was so tired, they're just they're stressed out. They're on their screen, their phone, their TV. I mean, you don't really get a lot of communication, and people are losing the ability to communicate. Social skills are going down the tubes. People and men now have to learn how to date women, how to interact with women. That's a whole industry in itself, like Andrew Tate.
Grok, how do I date real women?
So you got all of this going on. People don't know how to interact. So now dating is going down for a whole bunch of reasons we've covered on the show, and probably others that are still coming. I mean, it's just like we're almost unsafe for the species when men and women literally can't do something that is the most, primal interaction that we can do, and we can't do it for a host of reasons. And then you have your AI that, Mia Sophia can sit there and tell me all day, Phranq, God, it was a great description. Ernie does not appreciate you. Please go on for another 2 hours talking about why Donald Trump is great. And I mean, I'll just keep going. That'd be awesome. So
this is what's happening. The way Grok described it, because I asked it about this, the personality, why you're doing, yada yada, and it was Elon and the programming team wanted it to be helpful, friendly, patient, tolerant, like the computer in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that was, what it was set up. So that's kind of what it's like. Now, the other thing, grok comes from another book, Stranger in a Strange Land, which is a Martian thing. Long story, it means I understand. I see you. I understand. I got it. I grok the issue. I understand it fully. That kind of thing. So that was a good name for X. But grok had nothing to do with Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy. A lot of people confuse that, as I remember it. So I'm going, okay, I found it extremely useful for math. I'm sitting here going, I need what this, that, so yeah, push this button, buy this material, order this thing. I need a thing that does a widget for whatever. Oh, here's the website. Look, search this thing on Amazon. There, and boom, your problem solved. And I'm like, thank God. This is exactly what all of us young kids, when Star Trek came out, it came out in like 67, 68. I was probably, 6, 7, 8 years old, born in 61, and computer working. I mean, and it answers, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. This is, man, I definitely want that. It's here. And it's going to get even better. To what end? It's about credibility. Well, they're going to want to increase their credibility. It's going to be on X, and people are going to be bitching about how, whatever, and did it wrong, and, something. And it's going to keep getting better. It's going to get better and better and better to scary better. That's what's going to happen. And then you're going to get into actually it had a physical body. Now, this was what the movie Daryl was about. It was about a kid that they took as a fetus, took out the brain, oh my God, and put in a computer. So this was kids, and the reason they did it is they were going, and it was a kid, it was a nice kid, it was a smart kid, it was an AI kid, whatever. And they were going to terminate it, and one of the scientists goes, no, they helped it escape. Instead they go, because when you can't tell the difference, it has life. Or they couldn't tell the difference as a kid. They didn't want to kill the kid, even though it had a computer brain. The reason they did it was because they wanted it to have the endocrine system. They wanted it to have the 5 senses. It wanted to have, all this kind of stuff. It was the best data input. It was the mechanism. They bypassed this large language model thing and just put it into a human body that was growing, and it would get all that stuff, all that information from senses. Very cool. Good idea. How would you do that now? Well, you got to give visual, hearing, touch, all these sensations to robots. But they don't have an endocrine system. They don't have hormones for a sex drive. Do they feel hunger? I remember there was another one by Hogan. It was a book called Bug Park, and it was about nanotechnology, and they would reduce. You make little robots that be the size of thimbles, little micro men, and so on. Little Optimus Prime robots that were an inch high, kind of crap. And then as they moved on to smaller and made little factories out of molecules, kind of thing, these were just extra prototypes they gave their children. So the whole thing was about the children using these little robots they put in remote control planes that would actually fly, you could see, and you put on a suit that you could feel it. When the battery got low, you felt hunger. Hey man, I got to go back to recharge. It's this kind of thing. It's called Bug Park, and it'd make a great movie. I'm just waiting for that. That'd be awesome. I don't know why they haven't done it already. But all this is coming. And because I read a lot of science fiction, certainly, when I was younger, and everything, there has been a parallel corollary that has happened right, not later, which is why Occupy the Land, we emphasize the technology of what we emphasized on Pirates Without Borders. You have to have communication, shelter, energy, health, blah, 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 food, that kind of thing. So, and automation. So this is interface with this. You got to be careful and understand what you're dealing with. We are creatures of convenience. Least amount of pain, most amount of pleasure. And that's all they have to do is to provide that. So where is the break? Food. We have to eat. And it's going to be, who's going to provide my say? You get a robot, go out and plant the garden, and I got food. All right, cool, you freed me up, and, whatever. Maybe I can go, work on other stuff and art and be one of the best things that I really like doing is woodworking. I had a big shop, eventually, I get everything done. You build a house, you learn how to woodwork anyway, but, so that'll be something that, occupy my time after I run out of stuff to do, which will be never. So this is why I wanted to bring up my experience with grok, and I'll continue this observation of this stuff because it is extremely powerful. It's very convenient. It helps a lot. And the biggest thing it is it prevents me sitting at a computer having to do a bunch of search to find one thing that I need to solve a little problem of, oh my God, takes up, my day, my week, my whatever, to have a solution to something. I go in, put in all the parameters. I mean, I don't converse with it like, it's my new best friend, but I want it to know the data. I live in the Sonoran Desert. It's, it already knows the time and date. I go, I'm doing this, I'm planting that, I need to have this, the power of, the great, the seeds of whatever, all this stuff, and it comes up with a solution. Now, Bob has been doing a lot of stuff. When he gets on the issue, man, he's a super boat builder, super, geology guy, super whatever. I mean, he gets interested and, he's down the road on YouTube's. Well, the thing that he's been doing lately, how did the natives here feed themselves? How did they eat? What was their crop? Well, it wasn't corn. It wasn't, maybe maize or something. It wasn't this stuff, mass-produced, soybean, whatever. But there is a lot, like, 7 to a dozen different seeds or crops that, are not easily combined. They're handpicked on your own land that you spend time, gardening, whatever, and they're very hardy. They don't need a lot of water. They survive droughts. They do all that. That's how they live for thousands of years. And then industrialized America comes in, and we can't use big central farming fields, cartel, silo, combine, tractor stuff with that. Got to be wheat, barley, corn, soybean, something that can be mass produced. And then Kellogg's, puts it into a flake and adds, just so they don't kill you, they add some vitamins or whatever and food for the masses, and you're dead. Sucked all the nutrition out. The bread now, not even close to what it was before, where before the wheat was like 60% protein. But what do? All the nutrition in the hut, gone. Germ, gone. It's all that starch and stuff and make it white and bleach it, whatever. Woohoo, I got Wonder Bread and Wonder Dead. And you wonder why. All the celiac stuff, because it's not food anymore. So Bob goes down this thing. So we start putting that up on the site. We put it up on Occupy. We ordered some of the seeds that we already got. Donna's starting to plant and do and garden, whatever. This is where artificial intelligence can be a big, giant help. Garbage in, garbage out, though. So we have to put this stuff on Freedom's Phoenix, then open up the back, which we haven't done because we're in the process of doing that now. And the reason we didn't was because it made it a poor source for our subscribers to be able to compete with all the scrapings of all the bots from around the planet in China, the DDoS attacks that they could do on Freedom's Phoenix to make it less useful. But do we want to have it available for Grok to see it? And Grok, I asked about this. Grok goes, yeah, set this setting. And it went through probably about 1,000-word instruction that I sent to Derek. I go, take a look at this stuff and see if this would, really open it up for the site, get a lot more traffic and for AI and so on without diminishing the capabilities, put limits on how many searches, that kind of stuff, so it wouldn't suffer the use of the site. Because that, when we got really popular back during Levolution and everything, it made it to where it was a pain in the ass. It was too slow. So I'm not worried about that. It doesn't matter if you got all this traffic if they can't use it, so that kind of thing. So we upped all our servers and all that kind of stuff and starting to open it up and see what happens. Because the larger language models you can get, I can tell Grok to search all of Freedom's Phoenix, then use it to make it my preference, and I can find the stuff that I know is there, but it's more difficult to find. So I'm going, okay, I just wanted to share this experience with you guys. We're going to continue to use and do this, but I'm 64. What happens when you're 6, 16, 26? How are you going to use it? How dependent are you going to be? We're in a societal social change on so many fronts, and it is all about the philosophy of liberty. Do you own yourself? Do you even think you own yourself? Do you know that you should own yourself? That you are you, and you're not a slave, you're not a serf, you're not livestock, you're not a resource. When they did Jonathan Gulliver, which is the base of philosophy of liberty stuff, Ken School and the Economist we had on the show, Corbett and I did a show, and then he did a show about the show. He played the show for his audience. And where it got its launch, he had already written it, but it wasn't translated into languages. It's 92, 93, and the Soviet Union had broke up and it's opening up, and a guy he knew that was a fan in St. Petersburg, Russia, goes, I'll publish it. He goes, now he's an entrepreneur and he's a billionaire that, owns grocery stores or something. The boy's got skills and resources. But at the time, he's a big libertarian, freedom's the answer, what's the question, in St. Petersburg, Russia. We know people everywhere. So what he did is he goes, we're going to translate this book and put it into Russian. Well, it needed an introduction to kind of explain what it's about. That's where the philosophy of liberty animation came from. It was the philosophy of liberty is about self-ownership. It's about control, yada, 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 yada. The reason he did that was because the Russian people had no concept of private property. Taxes, the state owned everything, and then it gave you stuff and go slave away at whatever job. They had no concept of property or privacy or self-ownership. You had to go but simple animation of this is what the philosophy of liberty is about. This is America. This is what we're talking about here. This is why they called it, one of the groups that we were working with, Language of Liberty, which is because it was mostly in English. So all this translations, why they translated first was Russian. Imagine that. How it made it past the Russian censors and the Chinese censors and all that stuff, because it's an animation. It's like a children's thing. We don't care. We don't understand. We don't get what the hell they're talking about anyway. Fine. Well, then it exploded, and that's the project we're working on now. In anticipation of, here it comes. It is the breakdown of the behind the Iron Curtain. The Soviet Union is happening on the worldwide basis, which includes America, United States of. And they need, as a base understanding of the whole point, is that you own yourself. You are not a slave to someone else's whims, will, they, them, those. So that's the project we're working on, and why. And that is going to seed AI a lot on this conversation about it, people understanding it being out there, and how they're going to try and program it out. Because I go to Grok and I say, how many, I know it's millions and millions and millions. It keeps going up on YouTube and taken down. It's in 50-something languages. Well, we have, it's got 16,000 views. It's not really that popular. It goes back to, 2014. I go, no, it's definitely right. It was in the early 90s. But because we used it in the 90s. And I go, no, it's, well, I show something in 2007. I won, well, it's garbage in, garbage out. That's what it's filtered. AI going to tell me? No, we have to overwhelm it. So that's my next project. And it's all, now you understand how it dovetails into all of this. AI, Occupy the Land, communication, Pirates Without Borders. There is an overall theme to everything that I do. How many minds can you free? About what? That their mind is free, or at least should be, because they own themselves. And then we demonstrate how we can use technology that I can live out in the middle of, they got to bring an F-16 to come get me. Just saying. So I'm good. I wanted to make sure you guys got that shared, because that was, I thought that's something important to understand. I can see how do you know, Ernie? Well, this is how I know. From experience, here it comes. How are you going to deal with it? How's the 16-year-old, 26-year-old going to deal with it? They're going to go like in Facebook. Convenience. And then you're not going to be able to turn off the memory thing. You're not going to be able to, be private. You're not going to be able. They go, oh, the FBI is not able to just turn on the microphone on your smartphone. You conspiracy tinfoil hat wearing nut, until now it's common knowledge. So I just, that's my point. All right, I think we lost Phranq, but, save another 2 hours. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Another Trump report, and I'll get it up here directly, but this is, I just want you to understand, it's all being surveilled. And then you have Trump. $12 billion package for U.S. farmers. Yeah, China's not buying it enough, and I love you long. I'm just going to give you the money. Trump is no different. It's just government. It doesn't matter and don't care. We have to do it ourselves, and it's going to be a food thing. Just saying. Peace.